The Thursday, June 10th, 2021 electronic meeting of the Ann Arbor Historic District Commission. This meeting is being held electronically to protect public health and safety due to the COVID-19 virus and to comply with orders issued by the governor, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and/or the Washtenaw County Health Department. We intend to conduct this meeting similarly to an in-person meeting. However, please be patient if there are technical issues. Public comment will be held via telephone only. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, please call 877-853-5247 for toll-free or 213-338-8477 and enter meeting ID pound 978-6401-4515. This information is also available on the published agenda and in the public notices section of the city website, and on the broadcast of this meeting on CTN channel 16, AT&T channel 99, and online at www.a2gov.org/watchctn. Commissioners, we'll move on to item B, roll call. Commissioners, during roll call, please remember to state your location when your name is called. Ms. Thatcher, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Fortner.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Epperson.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Quijano. Commissioner White.
Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Rockland.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Beeson. Commissioner Ross.
Here in Detroit.
There you go.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. I would also like to introduce our newest commissioner, Jennifer Ross. She replaces Evan Hall, who will be missed greatly and who we thank for his years of service on the HDC. Jennifer served previously on the HDC, and I'd like to welcome her back. Jennifer, would you like to say a few words about yourself and your preservation background?
Sure. Thanks, Anna. So yeah, I actually was on the commission from 2011 through 2016. I actually started the first day. My first day was with Commissioner Beeson, actually, so we started the same day. So I've been in the field. I'm an architectural historian, been working in the field for over 20 years. I actually currently serve as staff for the Detroit Historic District Commission for the Planning Department. And I've served in that role since 2012. So I've just had a range of preservation experience.
Great. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you.
Well, Jennifer,
Have you back.
Oh, hey, Commissioner White, hello.
welcome home. And
Thank
the other
you.
thing is, you were at the Michigan Network. I see you were a panelist there.
Yes,
So thank you very much
thank you.
for
Thank
doing
you.
that.
I hope you enjoyed our presentation.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to item C, approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to tonight's agenda? I actually have one addition. I'd like to propose that we add an item under new business to discuss the potential discussion and potential motion on relocating the gas meters. That we maybe discuss some additional guidelines for staff approval.
Let's make that item G2.
Okay, I'll write that down before I forget.
I had something, Commissioner Epperson, on the agenda.
Sure. Go ahead, Commissioner Rock.
Going through the hearings, and I think that what is F12 might be F9 or something. There was something with the hearings, and maybe we can just, will it be an issue if we just fix it when we get to it? But there was just something that wasn't adding up with the hearing numbers, but is it okay if we just fix it as we get there?
Yeah, let's fix it when we get to it. F9 was 537 2nd Street. That's actually going to be postponed. That might have screwed up the numbering.
And then I believe there was the heading on F12 was incorrect, but the address may be correct.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Oh, yeah.
F12 should be 5456 Street. Let's make that change right now. 5456. Sorry, that was my fault for not catching that.
And when you open up 5456, it says F9 on the header.
Okay, don't worry about that.
Yeah, okay.
Just worry about the agenda.
Great, thank you.
Big agenda, sorry.
That's many projects.
Thank you, Commissioner Reckley. Any objections? Seeing none, the agenda has been approved as amended. Great. We'll move on to item D, public comment. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about an issue that is not listed as a public hearing on this agenda. To comment on such other preservation matters, please call 877-853-5247 for toll free, or 213-338-8477 and enter meeting ID pound 978-6401-4515. This information is also displayed on the meeting agenda and video feed. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand one by one using the last 3 digits of your phone number. In order to electronically raise your hand to indicate your desire to speak, please press *9 on your phone. You will hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. Please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Kristen, do we have any callers for public comment?
No callers have indicated.
Okay. We'll go ahead and then move on to item E, unfinished business. There is no unfinished business. So we'll move on to our hearings. Item F1 at 630 West Liberty. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
Certainly. Item F1 is 630 West Liberty Street. Come on, slides, you can do it. There we go. All right. This contributing 1 3/4 story home is in the Old West Side Historic District, and it first appears in Polk City directories in 1898. Features a shallow pitched roof with side-facing gables and wide board trim, 6/6 windows, and 3 knee wall windows facing the street. The front porch is brick with brick wing walls, tapered square half columns, and a steeper than average hipped roof on the front porch. It's on the north side of West Liberty between Murray and Mulholland Streets, and the applicant is seeking HDC approval to pave the gravel driveway with pavers. Right now, this from the apron, the drive apron, and the sidewalk to an area in front of the garage is unpaved, and then there's a large area of concrete right in front of the garage, which you'll see in a second. The proposal is to pave this unpaved section, maintaining this width of the current gravel, not making it any larger, not encroaching into the land, the planting strip next to the house. Here's a view from the garage area looking back toward the street. So this is one of the deepest lots in the Old West Side. You can see that here's the existing driveway. It's 8 feet wide and 70 feet long where it's unpaved. And then leading back to the garage, which is also a contributing structure, we've got a larger concrete area to accommodate 2 cars and sort of a turnaround possibly. Proposed is to keep it 8 feet wide and pave it with pavers. The pavers would match some existing pavers that are used for a patio that's near the driveway in the backyard. So the Secretary of Interior standards that best apply are numbers 1, 2, and 10. 1 says that a property will be used as it was historically or be given a new use that requires minimal change to its distinctive materials, features, spaces, and spatial relationships. Number 2 says historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. And number 10 says new additions and adjacent or related new construction will be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property will be unimpaired. Let me get you a photo here. Circling back around to the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines, the guidelines for paved areas state that it's appropriate to retain and maintain existing historic driveways and curb cuts, including two-track driveways and green space between the driveway and the house. This is not a two-track driveway. I've seen no evidence of that on say, the 1947 aerial photos. It's just always been gravel. This current configuration with the garage and driveway has been there since at least 1960. You can see that on an aerial photo. Staff does recommend approval of the application. The gravel driveway, I forgot a crucial point here. The gravel driveway is not from the period of significance. The driveway to the house used to be right here, and it was only deep enough to park a car. At some point in modern times, post 1944, it was moved over to this side. So really, we're just making sure that the paving the driveway wouldn't have any adverse effect on the house, which I don't believe it would. So staff does recommend approval of the application. Thank you.
Ms. Thatcher? Commissioners Epperson and Ross were on the review committees. Go ahead and give our reports. Yeah, I agree with staff on this. I think you know, the driveway is fairly long. However, it is narrow. There's already existing gravel there. I think one of my main concerns was whether or not it was originally two-track, which just because there is a strip of grass down the middle, but it's not consistent all the way. I think the use of pavers is appropriate, and it's like I said, it's fairly narrow. You'll see there is a slight hill, so it does increase as you kind of go up. So that's pretty relevant, but it's on Liberty, and you get a little, I guess, view of it as you're passing by. But I don't think it's going to detract from any of the historic character of the property. Commissioner Ross, would you like to give your report?
Sure. Thank you, Chairperson Epperson. So yeah, just I guess I would just kind of second or echo the staff report and Chairperson Epperson's impressions. Yeah, so as per the staff report, the driveway was added, current driveway was added after its period of significance. The proposal is not seeking to widen the footprint, and based on the fact that there's already that kind of concrete apron already existing, and there's the kind of side paver patio, and then of course for all the reasons that Chairperson Epperson outlined, the work appears to be generally appropriate. It's not going to result in the removal of anything, any kind of historically significant, any historic fabric. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Ross. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record?
If the applicant is here, would you please hit *9 on your phone to raise your hand if you're in the waiting room right now? There are a couple of labels that aren't really named, so we can't tell if it's you or not. But okay, I'm not seeing anyone raise their hand, so I think you can move on to the public hearing.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing for this item. This is again an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about this application at 630 West Liberty. Public comment may be made by calling 877-853-5247 or 213-338-8477 and entering meeting ID pound 978-6401-4515. Christian, do we have any callers for public comment?
No callers have indicated.
And just a reminder, just if you'd like to speak as a public hearing or for this public hearing for 630 West Liberty, you can press *9 on your phone to raise your hand. All right. We'll close the public hearing. I don't see any indication of public callers. Would any commissioner like to make a motion on this application? Commissioner Rockland.
One moment, please.
Sure.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 630 West Liberty Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to pave the driveway with pavers as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the surrounding resources and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District guidelines for paved areas and landscape features, and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, in particular standards 1, 2, and 10, and the guidelines for building site.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Rockland, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion? Doesn't seem to be. I think this is a pretty straightforward application. Like I said, I believe that the work is appropriate and compatible. And I appreciate that it's a paver driveway in lieu of just a concrete. So we can move on to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All those opposed, please say no. Right, the motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning your project. Now on to item F2 at 606 South Ashley Street. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
This is another straightforward application. It's at 606 South Ashley Street in the Old West Side. It's a 1 3/4 story gable fronter that features 1/1 windows, a full width front porch with a hipped roof, and round half columns on a sculpted block masonry porch wall. It was first occupied in 1916 by George Cook, the vice president of Cook Building and Supply. The property is on the west side of South Ashley, south of West Madison, and it's next door to the Washtenaw Dairy. The applicant is seeking HDC approval to install a solar array of black-on-black panels on the south-facing roof of the house, and that is the roof surface that you can see here in this picture. Here's another photo of that roof. It was recently re-roofed. I did receive an HDC application for that a few days ago. And the photovoltaic array would be pretty much centered on the roof. They're scooting it back a few feet to give sort of an access way to get up onto the roof. The meter would be located in the back, and the other stuff, equipment, mechanicals, located inside of the basement. The array is 26.5 feet by 12.2 feet by 6 inches high. The panels are going to be parallel to the roof surface, and they're about 2 feet from the ridge. This was an old photo taken before it was re-roofed, and you see a bunch of vent cans, but those are no longer there, as you can see. So because they recently re-roofed this in black, I think that this is sort of the best possible solar array installation with the black-on-black panels, and they're going to take up a good chunk of this roof. I don't think they'll be very conspicuous, and they're extremely reversible when they've outlived their lifespan. Oops. Just a couple more pictures. The dairy next door has their new their new solar panels on the roof. They're pretty low profile, and they look really cool. You can see them from the sidewalk. They were installed about 6 months ago, I believe. So Secretary of Interior standards that best apply are 2, 9, and 10. I've already read you 2 and 10. 9 says new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. So staff does recommend approval of this application. And believes it meets all of the standards and guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Let's see. Commissioners Ross and myself were on the review committee. Commissioner Ross, did you want to start on this one?
Yeah, so I guess I was just kind of getting reacquainted with the guidelines for solar installations. So understanding the guidelines and kind of looking at this building in situ and then looking at the application. I agree with the staff report. With the roof having been re-roofed in black shingles and the panels being slightly, I think it's like pushed back 2 feet, or they're going to be pushed back 2 feet. There's a nice a little kind of strip of kind of free roof before the panels start. Yeah, it just seems to be just pretty much straightforward per the staff report and look to be appropriate. I mean, I guess I would just, if the owner is here, just kind of ask why the roof work was done without approval and hope going forward that any new work would be submitted to staff prior to its undertaking.
Thank you, Commissioner Ross. I agree with both the staff report and Commissioner Ross's assessment. And I do think that, in some instances we, ask for the roof to be completely covered. I do think the 2 foot setback is, in this case, particularly helpful to just help maintain that roof peak and that feature, since it is, I think, one of the more character defining features of this particular house. But I think, again, with the array taking over the majority of the roof and being the black on black, I think that will be completely compatible and meets our guidelines. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record? Kristen, do we have?
There we go.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I am, my name is Kevin, and I am proposing to do the installation for the customer.
Okay. Kevin, can you just provide your address for the record?
It is 1382 Marlboro.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Doesn't look like
What's the
there
zip
are.
code of your address?
Oh, 48104.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Seeing no questions, I will move on to the public hearing for this item. This is the opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about the application at 606 South Ashley. Public comment may be made by calling 877-853-5247 or 213-338-8477 and entering meeting ID #978-6401-4515. Do we have any callers for public comment?
No callers.
Okay. I will now close the public hearing portion of the application. Would any commissioner like to make a motion? Commissioner Fortner? You are muted.
Sorry.
Okay.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 606 South Ashley Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to install a black-on-black solar array on the south-facing roof as proposed. The work is compatible in the exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for roofs, energy efficiency, and mechanical systems, as well as the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines particularly as they pertain to solar installations.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Fortner, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion? Commissioner Rockland?
Sure. I mean, I think with the solar arrays, the key is to make them as unnoticeable as possible. They're on your roof, but so I feel like this one is fulfills that more than most. There's no dormer or chimney or anything to interact with, and I think when the array is like a simple rectangle as opposed to like a Tetris shape, it's just less noticeable. And if you're not going to fill the whole plane of the roof, then this one is generally proportioned the same as the roof. And again, I think that will just be less noticeable from the street.
I also just wanted to point out, I think in the packet, it indicated where the power supply was going and the connections, and they are in the rear. So that's appreciated, especially on the rear and inconspicuous portion of the house. Any other further discussion? Okay, we can move to a vote. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 Yes. All those opposed, please say no. Great, the motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for required permits from the city before beginning your project. Thank you, Kevin. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Great. We will now move on to item F3, 530 Elizabeth. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
All right, 530 Elizabeth Street in the Old Fourth Ward is St. Thomas's Catholic Church. It was built in the Romanesque Revival style in 1899. The St. Thomas Rectory was built next door in 1902 in the Colonial Revival style with numerous significant architectural features. This site is located on the east side of Elizabeth Street and the west side of North State Street between High Street and East Kingsley. It takes up the entire block. The applicant is seeking HDC approval to expand a memorial garden located in front of the church along North State Street by installing a granite fieldstone wall with a 6 1/4-inch limestone cap, L-shaped, that's 33 feet long, parallel to North State, with an approximately 11-foot return on the north end. The wall varies in height around 6.5 to 7 feet. So here's the church. We're now at the corner of East Kingsley and North State, and the wall area is located back here. You wouldn't be able to see it from this angle, I don't believe. Again, this is looking down North State. This is the addition that was put on in the 80s, and there are pictures in the packet. It looks like it was a very interesting process. If you'd like to know the history of how they actually built that to match as well as it does while still being distinguished from the historic part of the church. This is the current memorial garden wall, and it has a metal gate. This gate was previously on the interior of the church, but they didn't have a use for it there, so they moved it to the exterior when this wall and the addition were built. The proposal is to leave a 1-foot gap right here and then extend this wall with a new 33-foot length, to basically just leave this opening here where the gate was and move the gate down to the other end. So it would be sort of a 2-room garden. In between would be a 1-foot gap that is filled in with twisted metal bars, decorative bars. If you see this over here, it was done on the addition, and I'll show you some close-ups of those in just a second. Well, there's lots of pictures, lots of information in the packet. Mr. Poley is standing about where the wall would end and L back toward the church. As you can see, there are 3 little basement windows along the church here that would be obscured by the wall, but for the most part, it's a stone wall, and I wouldn't call those character-defining features that shouldn't be obscured. They won't be harmed. You just won't be able to see them from the street anymore. This is just another angle. Here's where the wall would be extended. This little tree would have to be removed, but I believe that the other ones would stay as they are. This is looking toward the memorial garden along that church wall, just so you can see what's there now. They probably rework this path of slate. And here's a close-up of that grate showing some of the ironwork. It's just, they didn't propose a design yet, but it's only got to fill a 1 foot gap. It's just to keep, that closed up a little bit, but also keep it separate from the 80s wall. This is a 1908 photo, which is interesting. It's before the addition was put on in the front here and the additional tower. This is a good way to see it. You can see the historic part of the church, and then this tower and this wing were the additions. And this is the current garden wall, which would be extended to about here. The applicant provided a lot of really good clear photos. This is what's going on inside of the garden right now. That's the gate that would be relocated. And that's what it looks like right now from across the street. The plans show this dashed line here is the new wall. See if you can see a little better on here. See this L shape right here. 33 feet, 11 feet. And this is the proposed. This is the, I'm sorry, I was showing you the existing. This is the proposed, is next to the existing. And this is the new expanded garden area. And that's what it would look like from the street. Again, I don't believe that any character defining features are being obscured there. And there's the 1 foot gap that would have some sort of decorative ironwork filling it in. And there's a great photo rendering of what it would look like. So I've read to you Secretary of Interior Standard number 9, and that's the one that best applies. This work is reversible. It does not touch the historic structure. It's similar to the 1993 wall, and as such will not be mistaken as historic work, and staff recommends approval of the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioner Ross was on this review committee. I was unable to make it. Commissioner Ross, will you please give your report?
Okay. So basically, once again, I generally agree with staff's characterization of the projects and the site conditions. So yeah, so the question around or the concern around the potential of the proposed new fence or gate or wall obscuring the basement windows. Looking at them, they did not appear, in my opinion, to be character defining. And the project appears to be just like a really sensitive, compatible addition to the property. And that break is really nice so that you can really tell, like, okay, this is just the next phase in the expansion of this garden area. And the one kind of remaining, at least vertical element, the historic fence, which had been already moved from the inside of the church outside, that will be maintained and just kind of further moved towards the entryway. So overall, the project, like I said, just appeared to be in keeping with the standards, did not appear to detract or obscure or that it will result in the destruction of any historic character defining elements. And like I said, it appeared to be a very sensitive addition to the property.
Great, thank you. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record?
I'm here. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay, good.
Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, my name is Lincoln Poley. I'm an architect in Ann Arbor, and my home and work address is 2030 Rugby Court, Ann Arbor, 48103.
Thank you. Welcome. It looks like we have another caller
I'm Paul Schultz. I live at 1785 Addington, 48108. I'm a member of the volunteer cemetery committee that oversees this memorial garden.
Okay, thank you. Did you guys have anything you'd like to add to the staff report or review committee report?
Paul, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to say that I'm very glad that you're taking this up, and hopefully we can get this passed and move forward. We still have to get a variance if this does get passed from the Building Board of Appeals for the zoning on this. But other than that, I'm the original architect, not the original architect, the architect that did the addition, the original addition in '93. And that also included that raised plaza in the front. There was a small narthex, there is a small narthex, so the idea was to come out at the same level. You used to come down 3 steps immediately as you walked out the doors. So, and we also provided a barrier-free access ramp in that, and stone walls in the front, curving stone walls that match the garden walls. So there was, as well as the whole interior restoration and renovation at that time. So this is, I believe this is in keeping with what we did in '93 and just moving another step forward with the project.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Rockland?
Yeah, well, this was a really interesting project to review, and there was a lot of information in the packet, so thank you for that. I guess I just have a question, probably for Mr. Poley. I'm just curious, kind of what your thinking was with the, we looked at standard 9, and obviously there's a call for differentiation, and it seems like what you're doing is you're more or less calling us to the '93 edition, but then you also have the break. So I'm just kind of curious, like, how were you thinking through differentiation, and were you differentiating from the '90s edition, or were you trying to integrate with the '90s edition and have that differentiate to the historic structure?
Yeah, I was trying to differentiate between the existing building and this, and also provide a separation aesthetically, as well as differentiation in time of when something was built, by having the gap and having a small panel that would go in there, basically an open wrought iron panel. I think that by doing that, someone can easily tell that this wasn't part of any original construction, but it was an addition. Also, by butting it basically right up to the existing wall, we always end up with problems. And so this solves a construction problem of tying footings together. If there's any movement, any settlement, we don't see that happening. Whereas if we butted this exactly to it, over time, one of the walls might move slightly and we'd get cracking there. So by separating it, structurally, it's a good idea. Aesthetically, I think it's a good idea. And in terms of the appearance, I think it does offer that separation, whether it's just from the '93 edition or from the church as well as the addition.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks for that. Good question. Thanks for that explanation. Any other questions for the applicant? Not seeing any, so I'd like to open the public hearing for this item. This is the opportunity for persons to speak up for up to 3 minutes about the application at 530 Elizabeth. Christian, do we have any callers?
No callers.
I will now close the public hearing portion of the application. Would any commissioner like to make a motion?
I can do that.
Commissioner Ross?
Okay. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 530 Elizabeth Street, a contributing property in the Old Fourth Ward Historic District, to build a granite fieldstone wall as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the surrounding resources and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District guidelines for fencing and walls and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular Standard 9 and the guidelines for setting.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Ross, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there any discussion on the motion? Just say, I think this application is very thorough and very straightforward, and I appreciate the sensitivity. I think, everything that was just explained by Mr. Poley about leaving that little bit of a gap between the new and the old and matching the more recent addition and still trying to differentiate from the, contributing structure, I think is all very sensitive. So I support the application. I think it meets all of our guidelines. All right, we can move to a vote if everyone's ready. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 All those opposed, please say no. All right, the motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning your project.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Have a good evening.
Bye now.
Bye. All right, we will now move on to item F4, 509 4th Street. Ms. Thatcher, please give the staff report. You are on mute, Ms. Thatcher.
I'm going to catch on to that just about the time we go back to live meetings. I'm sorry, 509 4th Street is a two-story gable fronter in the Old West Side Historic District. Features a full-width stone porch, a cut stone foundation, and a shallow two-story gabled wing facing north. First appears in the Polk City Directory in 1894. House is located on the east side of 4th Street, south of West Jefferson and north of West Madison. And the applicant is seeking HDC approval to install a gas meter on the south side elevation of the house, 3 feet from the front corner of the house. So the proposed location is here on the south elevation, and I'll show you pictures in a moment. The picture's a little fuzzy, but this black is a window. This is stone, and this is all stone. It's just different colors. There is quite a lot of vegetation, which is good for screening. And it's the type that doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere anytime soon. You can see even in the winter, these are applicant photos. It provides a little bit of cover. The meter location is right near the front of the house. And all of the meters that you'll see tonight are proposed to be the post-mounted rather than the wall-hung manifolds. The applicant states that the homeowners requested the proposed location for the meter manifold because they want no more than necessary fuel line installed and not on the driveway side. This is the opposite side from the driveway. I'm going to read you the Secretary of Interior Standards and Guidelines and the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines. These apply to all of the gas meter applications. I'm not going to repeat them for you for every case tonight. Standard 2 says the historic character of a property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. Number 9 says new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. Number 10 says new additions and adjacent or related new construction will be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property will be unimpaired. From the guidelines for mechanical systems, it's recommended to install a completely new mechanical system if required for the new use that it causes the least alteration possible to the building's floor plan, the exterior elevations, and the least damage to the historic building material. From the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for mechanical equipment, it's appropriate to install new air conditioning units and related mechanical equipment in such a manner that historic materials and features are not damaged or obscured. It's also appropriate to use compatible screening around outdoor mechanical equipment such as vegetation and fencing, and to attach mechanical equipment so historic fabric is not damaged or destroyed. It's also appropriate to install mechanical equipment and wiring in locations on the roof, rear elevations, or in alleys. They're not visible from the street. Also, painting mechanical equipment to blend with the historic building. It's not appropriate to install new mechanical equipment systems or wiring in locations that change or destroy character-defining features and materials. Oops, excuse me. All right, let me go back up to the photos here. So the good thing about these post-mounted meters is that they really don't destroy historic materials, so that's kind of off the table. What we're worried about more is whether they are distract or otherwise interfere with historic materials that they are near. So we've got several of these tonight. I don't think that this is a great location for this meter. I do think that there's a lot of vegetation that's existing, that's grown up around this one, which is a point in its favor. And this is one of those where I'm a little bit on the fence. I'm probably leaning toward recommending approval of it, since I realize that not all of these can be located where we want them to be. And really, this is not a super prominent location on this house. I think we'll see some other ones that would be much more obvious than this one because it's low to the ground and there's a lot of vegetation there. So that concludes staff's report.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioner Epperson and Ross are on the view committee. Well, Commissioner Ross, do you want to go first? Or I can go ahead.
I can start. I guess just to echo Ms. Thatcher's opinion, I'm not a fan of of these meters. And I guess we'll have further discussion. Hopefully, there's a representative from DTE here to talk about explain, well, as a new commissioner to me, but I guess to the audience as well. Why these meters have to be kind of installed at side elevations in front versus the rear. I mean, I think I understand it, but it'd be great to kind of hear it. But yeah, I would just echo the fact that, especially compared to some of the other sites that we looked at or we visited, there is a substantial amount of vegetation, kind of obscuring the location from the public right-of-way. So I would imagine or think that this meter would not be super visible or super noticeable from the public right of way. Of course, vegetation comes and goes, but yeah, it's there. And Chairperson Epperson, if you want to kind of weigh in on this.
Yeah, so no, those are all great comments, and I would pretty much echo all of them. I think that, having these meters located so close to the front is not something that we would look for in a historic district. And it seems like we don't have a lot of options in some of these instances where they are located toward the front or on the front of the house. I will say if this particular house, you can see from the photos that the vegetation is quite dense. So I think that does help, as stated, that it does shield it from view quite a bit. Of course, it will be visible in the colder months and when there is nothing on the trees. The foundation is stone. It looks to be original. We're trying to look at, some of the existing, I guess there's just that small basement window toward the front that the meter would be in front, placed in front of, toward the corner. look to be some, maybe I think the existing gas sensor and another sort of smaller element that were kind of sticking out right about that window.
Right.
We don't really know where the gas line is going to go through the house, if it's going to go through the stone foundation or through the water table screw board. And then I know that there's an option for post mount versus bracket mount. And I think for most of these instances, we'd probably prefer just post mount. And that way there's no damage to the structure, especially in this instance, whenever you have a nice stone foundation such as this. So I guess those are my comments for this particular house. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record?
Give us 1 second here where Kristen promotes some people. One quick question. E61010. I don't think I can lower your hand for you. Yes, I can. So Brian, if that's you, would you raise your hand again now that I've lowered your hand? Yes, it's Brian. Okay. I'm going to promote you also. Thank you, Kristen.
Do we have an additional people to promote? Or is everyone here?
I think they're just going to hang out in the waiting room in case they're needed.
Okay. Looks like we have Mo, Kaisi, and then E610 is Brian. If you could all just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Brian Valeris. I'm the general manager of the gas renewal program, DTE Energy. My business address is 14270 Schaefer Highway, Detroit, Michigan.
Thank you. Mo or Kaisi?
Yeah, I'll go first. This is Mohammed, project manager at DTE. My current address is in Dearborn, 54 Morris Circle.
Thank you. And we have one additional caller. I believe you are muted. If you could unmute, and please give us your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Kai Soares. I'm with Cory Energy. My business address is 6001 Schooner in Belleville, Michigan.
Thank you, Case. And it looks like we have Devon. Is that correct? Devon Keys, if you could just unmute your microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Devon Keys, Cory Energy Services, 60001 Schooner Drive, Belleville, Michigan.
Great, thanks. I know we've done that for the rest of them. I think we're good. I know that Commissioner Ross had made the comment and question if you can just explain the locations again, just for her knowledge as a new commissioner and for those who may be listening now. And if you have any additional information to please provide for this particular application, please do so.
Yeah, I can respond to the commissioner's question, and then I'll let either Devon or Kais respond to the specifics to the structure. But we at DTE, across all of the work that we're doing in southeastern Michigan with this project, do our very best to work with the customer and the site. Every site is fairly unique, right? You'll run into some areas, not the historical area, they're typically all unique. There's some cookie cutter areas where you can pretty much picture where you're going to be able to place meters, and now it's just a matter of customer satisfaction type activity. But I'm sure I'm not specific to this site. Again, I'll let Kais or Devon respond to this specific location. But we do everything in our power to put the meter where the customer prefers it, and in the historical areas to hide it from the roadway or pedestrian vision when you go down the street per the guidelines. When we can't, I guess that's why we're in front of you tonight, right? There are specific reasons why we cannot, but it's not because we don't want to. Trust me, there's a lot of effort that goes into it. The majority of the time, if not all of the time, it's going to be because of the construction of the home. Where are the appliances located? Where is the current meter located in the basement? Maybe not so much where the existing service line is located. It's more so the appliances, the construction of the house. We are putting a new service in, so we can kind of put the new service wherever we can, but it's connecting the appliances up to the new meter that is the sometimes obstacle or issue. That meaning, there's how long can you run a fuel line before the mechanical code kicks in and says you can't do that? Can you even get a fuel line through a wall or this type of thing, right? It's construction based. It's not because we are just trying to take the easy road and not place it where it is in the back or out of sight. This is, it takes again a lot of construction and a lot of expertise, and we can explain, or the guys from Corby can explain this specific issues getting that meter out of sight for the 7, 8, 9 or how many we're going through tonight. But in general, that's our philosophy in the reasons why we put them where we put them.
I did it. Thank you for that, Brian. Kaiser, Devon, do you have anything you can add about this particular installation?
Yeah, so to piggyback off of what Brian said, the internal structure of the home really plays a big factor of where the meter placement is. In this particular home, the kind of like the mechanical room in the basement, a lot of the fuel lines were on the driveway side. And per DTE's codes and standards, if we were to put the meter on that side, kind of further back, we'd have to put what these yellow barrier posts protect the meter from vehicles, which would narrow the homeowner's driveway. And she was not a fan of any more construction than necessary. So upon talking to her, we decided that we would put it in the front corner upon your approval. It minimizes the length of fuel line that we have to run in their basement. It eliminates the need for the posts on her driveway side. And her and I both felt comfortable that the vegetation would cover the meter to limit the visibility from the street as, walkers or cars pass.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any additional applications or additional questions for the applicant? Commissioner Rockland.
Can you please remind us what we've read, like there's a 10-foot rule, we sort of call it, but can you remind us again, there's the, you can move the meter away from the existing, but there's something with 10 feet. Please remind me and anyone else who needs a reminder.
Any piping that's not gas service line or gas main or gas meter related, the fuel line, we call it, is gas piping customer owned, if you will. That's the piping inside your home. It falls away from NPSC regulation and turns into mechanical code regulation. So more mechanically in the code, for mechanical contractors, it refers to how many fittings you can attach to a fuel line and how far a length of a run before, additional requirements meet. And 10 feet is the general guideline, and I believe it's 6 fittings as well. So it falls under the mechanical code, which is outside of our jurisdiction. We're not licensed to perform that activity.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
So when I see that on an application, should I be thinking of like a hot water heater or a furnace that's using gas for its fuel? And in order to move this meter to some other location, would require moving the actual furnace or moving, the hot water heater, which would be obviously an incredible inconvenience. Is that how I should be thinking of it? Or is there something else that the fitting and the 10-foot rule applies to?
I mean, that would be the hard way. The easy way, and it's not easy, would be to move the fuel line to where the new meter is going to be in the basement. So you would have to take that fuel line, hire a mechanically licensed person to take that fuel line and move it, say if you needed it 50 feet, to where that meter would be placed. That's a gross inconvenience for the homeowner, the customer, and a cost that, they'd have to hire that mechanically licensed person, typically a plumber, to do all that work for activity that we're saying we have to come in and move the meter out because it's the safety program that we're working through. And it would be pretty emotional conversation to say, whatever that cost would be, and you'd have to incur it, right? So that's where we get into, okay, we can get it within 10 feet of the line. We are, per the code, right, able to do that.
Okay.
10 feet.
Understood. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Roscoe.
So I had a couple of questions. One actually for staff, but two for the applicant. So just to be clear, so if the commission said no to this location and said, hey, put it towards the back, just to be clear, you're saying that the homeowner would bear the cost for that?
Correct. We're not licensed to do the work, so that would then fall, because it's customer-owned piping, on the customer.
Okay. And then my second question, kind of going to staff, just so I just get a general idea of the number or the percentage of these types of applications that staff is approving, i.e., just a general percentage of this equipment actually kind of going towards the rear of the house. So is this like a small number, generally speaking, that aren't being proposed for location towards the rear?
It is pretty small.
Okay.
The last time I counted, I think we had about 95 applications that had been approved or are before you tonight. And let's see, last month, you guys have probably looked at 8 so far, I guess. And I think there's another 8 here tonight. 8 here tonight. So, about 15% are coming to you guys for a review because I'm not able to staff approve them.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then I guess the last question I had, going back to the applicant. So can you talk about this particular piece of equipment, this type, and the wall penetration involved in it? Is it just a small, how big is the hole? How many holes are there, just generally speaking?
Well, it's one hole. go through the wall and then connect to the internal piping inside the basement.
Okay.
That hole will, the pipe that goes through the wall is 1 inch, so it's going to be about 1 1/8 inches, right? And then filled in, the little bit of a gap will be filled in.
Okay, thank you.
And then Devon or Kais, do you guys know where the actual penetration will be for this particular house?
Yes, the resident preferred that we go through the wood, the sill board, or the bond board, so that we didn't disturb the stone foundation and, you know, take any chances of cracking it or having any issues there, which to us, it's a lot easier and less destructive to go through that wood, where we can seal it up and with, you know, a white caulk that would match and kind of make it a lot less, you know, chance of a water leak or anything in the future.
And just as maybe another general question, can you guys use existing openings? Like, it looks like, and I'm not sure if it's a gas sensor or not, but like on this one there, it looks like there's an old like round piece that attaches to the water table there. It's hard to see from this image, but is that an existing piece of equipment from the utility company that can be used, or does that go away, or does that just stay? I don't know if you can.
That is the existing inside meter regulator vent. So that's attached to the old assembly that will be coming out of there, and it's a vent for the regulator that's in the basement.
Okay.
That hole is not large enough, but Devon, you can respond. Obviously, you've been out here, but you can probably use that as your pilot hole. It would just need to be opened up a little bit wider, right, to fit the 1 inch pipe, but because that can get pulled out. It'll no longer be in use once the old meter in the basement's taken out.
That's correct, Brian. What we will do on this home, like we do and many others, since there's already a small hole started, we would run a piece of pipe from the location down underneath the rain sill to that location, so that, you know, we're reusing basically what's kind of already there. So we're limiting the amount of holes drilled into the existing home.
Thank you. Any additional questions for the applicant, commissioners? Does not look like it. So I will move on to the public hearing portion for this application at 509 4th Street. This is an opportunity for persons to speak up to 3 minutes about this application. Kristen, do we have any callers?
No callers.
Okay. We'll close the public hearing portion. Would any commissioners like to make a motion on this application?
I just have a quick statement before a motion's made. Just if we have any more time for discussion. So I'd be willing to support this application with the condition that that existing penetration be utilized. I don't know where, I thought that was a really great idea coming from the chair. So just throwing that out to whomever is making the motion.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Rockland, were you raising your hand?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll add it to the motion. That sounds good.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 509 4th Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to install a gas meter on the south side elevation 3 feet from the front corner of the house, utilizing the existing penetration for the vent as shown in the application. As proposed, the work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, materials, and relationship to the building and the surrounding area, and meets the City of Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for mechanical equipment and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for mechanical systems.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Rockland, supported by Commissioner White. Is there discussion on the motion? Commissioner Rockland.
Sure. Well, I think that this is the appropriate place for the meter, given everything that I've heard, the report and all the discussion and the really good comments that we've heard from the callers here. I personally, I'm thinking like the non-driveway side, I'm like typically favoring that. I'm not saying across the board that's what it's going to be, but it just always, well, not always, but it just seems like, especially in this case, it's going to be less noticeable on the non-driveway side. And when you have an existing meter that's in the front of the house, interior or exterior, it seems like the best we can do in all these scenarios that we've seen is get it around the corner and move it back up to 5 feet, or seems like is the best case scenario that we can hope for, given all the challenges we have in this project. So I think that we probably can't move it back 5 feet in this case, because maybe that window is there, but I would just sort of recommend that, get it as close as you can. Well, I guess it's 3 feet, and that's 3 feet. And I'm just kind of curious, like how much, vent is going to, or fuel line will then run along the skirt board there. But anyway, I think this is sort of the best we can hope for in this situation. I did add that thing to the that little sentence to the motion, and I'm just thinking, like, obviously the homeowner was very involved in this project. I don't think we have the homeowner on the call, but I can't think of a reason why the homeowner wouldn't want us to add that to the motion. It sounded like they were concerned about, penetrations through the exterior wall, and this would solve that. So I guess if any commissioners can think of a reason not to do that, it would be nice to hear. That's all I can think of.
Thank you. I think that's a good point about the length of fuel line, and what I'm recalling from this particular instance, that vent is pretty much right at the edge of the window, and that window isn't more than, I think it's about 4 feet maybe from the edge. It's kind of hard to tell because there's a lot of stuff there, so I don't think it'll be a great deal of fuel line.
Okay.
And it'll be behind the larger unit, which I guess could be positive.
Let's vote.
All right, everybody ready to vote? Yep. All right. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 Yeah.
All those opposed, please say no. All right, the motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning your project. All right, on to item F5 on 639 5th Street.
All right, 639 5th Street is in the Old West Side Historic District, and it's a single-story home that was built in 1925, first occupied by Walter Wenger, a repairman for Detroit Edison. It features a full-width front porch and 2/2 windows, and there's a larger 2-story addition on the back. The house is on the east side of 5th Street, south of West Madison, and backing up to Turner Park Court, and the applicant seeks HCC approval to install a gas meter on the north elevation, 7 feet from the front corner of the house. So here's the front corner of the house, so we're talking about 7 feet back, which puts us right into this corner here. You can see that there's a hose bib here, and it would be just behind that. Here's the existing indoor meter location and the proposed outdoor location. The application states that the meter manifold cannot be moved farther back to maintain less than 10 feet of fuel line. There you can see how it's tucked back into the corner. I would like some confirmation on whether or not the freestanding meter, the post-mounted meter, whether it'll be below the sill here. So it would only be in front of the concrete of the basement wall. That would be good information to have, because if it's shorter than that, I think it'll be less obtrusive than if it's sticking up where this meter location sign is, you know, in front of siding and trim. So staff does generally support this application.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioner Ross and myself were on the review committee. I think this is actually a good photo for this particular location. As we saw in the previous photo, the meter would be located all the way toward the back of the corner. There is that existing vent that's already, I guess, penetrating the wood trim there. There's another small piece of equipment, or not quite small, looks like a vent for some other piece of equipment protruding out the side of the house, right toward the front corner. It is going to be quite visible, but again, I think just to reiterate staff's comment regarding the height of the meter, I think in this particular case, if it could be mounted as low as possible to the ground and wasn't obscuring the trim board, that would be preferable. Commissioner Ross?
Yes, I mean, I guess I would just reiterate everything the chair has noted. I mean, to me, it's a little bit more problematic than the last application in that it will be highly visible. It's kind of up on a, I wouldn't say hill per se, but yeah, it's gonna, yeah.
It's elevated.
Yeah, it's elevated. Yeah,
it's pretty visible from where you're standing.
Yeah, it's a little problematic in my opinion, but I'm merely one commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Ross. The applicant please provide any additional information for this particular address?
I'm not sure if Devon would have any specifics to the structure of why, this is the location chosen. So I guess I'll have to defer to the experts that have been out there.
So this basement is it's pretty well finished. The current utility room where the meter is just on the other side of that wall is the utility room, and they currently have the fuel lines are all accessible up in that front corner. So that's why I chose this location. There was frost in the ground at the time of the picture taken, so I couldn't stick the stakes in the ground. So the meter will sit lower, and the homeowner already has an inline T, which is fitting that we would tie directly into to really minimize, the work that has to go in their basement. And if you look at the house, if you were to go down the street, the lady does a really good job of landscaping, and her husband commute back and forth from Chicago, and she assured me that she was going to try to plant something there, as you can see, like the tomato cages and stuff, to try to make it so it is minimal, most of the year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Rockland.
Yeah, I just, can you let us know why we can't put the meter like exactly opposite where it is on the other wall? Let's say 8 foot back on the south wall, or 7 foot, sorry. Is the ceiling open in the same way it is on the north side that it is on the south side in the front, and can it go on that other wall?
The south side, if you're looking at the house, the south side, that room is finished, and all their utilities and all their fuel line stuff goes into that north front corner. Then everything leaves, and it's all drywalled, and it would, it would be over 10 feet, and it would be a very big inconvenience to the customer to remove all that drywall to access.
So the two rectangles that I'm seeing, the bigger rectangle, that is actually a finished ceiling room. And then what you're saying is the utility room is that smaller rectangle there.
Yes, sir. Where the red X is just on the other side of that wall would be the utility room.
Okay. Okay. I was not picturing that, but I understand what's going on now. Okay.
Commissioners, do you have any additional questions for the applicant? Okay, we can move on to the public hearing portion. This is an opportunity for persons to speak up to 3 minutes for the application at 639 5th Street. Kristen, do we have any callers?
No callers.
Thank you. I will now close the public hearing portion of the application. Would any commissioner like to make a motion? I can make this one. Let's see. I'm gonna make sure I have the right one here. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 639 5th Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to install a gas meter on the north elevation 70 feet from the front corner of the house as shown in the application and mounted as low as possible from the ground. As proposed, the work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement materials, and relationship to the building and the surrounding area, and meets the City of Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for mechanical equipment and the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for mechanical systems.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Epperson and supported by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion? I am not seeing any. So are we ready to vote? Let's say yes. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 All those opposed, please say no.
No.
Right, the motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning work on your project. We will now move on to item F6, 532 5th Street. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
.532 Fifth, also in the Old West Side, is a two-story home that features a narrow original footprint. This is the original part of the house. It's very narrow. Cut stone foundation, wide board eave trim, and stained glass in the upper sash, you can see here, of the front second floor window. It appears in the 1894 Polk Directory as number 36, occupied by the Schneierly family until at least 1930. It's on the west side of 5th, south of West Jefferson and north of West Madison. And the applicant is seeking HCC approval to install a gas meter on the north side of the house, 3 feet from the corner, 3 feet from the front corner. So there's lots going on in this house. It's had a large addition here. That's a modern one. This was probably a porch that was enclosed at some point. That's just speculation. There's another addition. Yeah, here the footprint shows it better. There's another addition on the back. This is from the period of significance, and it has a very cool structural clay tile garage that's very unique. Existing meter is at the front. The proposed meter location is 3 feet from this front corner of the house. There is a fence here. We spoke to the owner at the review committee visit, and he said it's to hide his garbage cans, and he didn't indicate that it would ever be going anywhere. I know that fences are not forever, but since the meter is proposed to go right behind it, I'm glad that it's there. And fence is on your left. This is the corner of the house, and the meter would go right into this space between the garbage cans. So it won't be visible at this time from the street. And staff does recommend approval of this application with the caveat that it would be good to know whether or not that penetration can go through through the drip edge here, through the wood, instead of through the cut stone foundation, which would be possibly damaging, as was pointed out in one of the earlier applications. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioner Ross and myself were on the review committee. I agree with Ms. Thatcher's report. It is nice that this particular instance there is already a fence in place to conceal, where this proposed location would be. There is also the large rain barrel that was shown up in the one photo, so that would, if the fence is gone and they still have the rain barrel, that would essentially be, help to conceal. Both of those are, of course, temporary. Just to note, I think the vent for this one was located just to the right of the blue trash can in this photo. So I believe it was in the skirt board.
Might be right.
Yeah, so I would second, of course, the statement to utilize that, either that particular penetration would be ideal, but certainly to not go through the stone foundation. This one, I believe, is on the driveway side, but it is located, the side of the house is pretty far from the actual drive, so I don't think there would be, any issue with hitting it with the car or anything like that. So I think for those reasons, I would like to hear, from Devon and Kais some more information, particularly for this installation, but I'll let Commissioner Ross give her report as well.
So yeah, I would just second everything that staff and the chair noted. It does help that there's a fence, but just, once again, obviously this is not something that's permanent, and that's guaranteed to be there another 100 years. However, yeah, I guess I would also like to hear from the applicant around the potential of using the existing penetration, and, obviously tied with that, just for some assurance that any sort of penetration will go through the sill versus the stone foundation.
Thank you, Commissioner Ross. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone and provide any additional comments for the commissioners?
Yeah, sorry about that. I was having a problem unmuting. So this homeowner has a boiler system in their home that's basically located in the center of their basement when you come down the stairs, and they have an 1.5 inch feeder line right off the meter. And the reason I chose to put the meter where it is, not only because of the fence, was also it's the most direct route to feed that boiler line. After conferring with people at DTE and heating and cooling people, there was concerns that if we moved the meter way far back and had to run an extensive line across the basement to tie into that fuel line run, that might create a shortage problem with the boiler. And the homeowner indicated to me that when I spoke to him that he had no intentions of replacing the boiler or replumbing his basement anytime soon. So that ultimately led to where the meter location was picked. And most definitely we can go through the sill and we can reuse that vent hole to eliminate another drilling through your sill board.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any additional comments or questions? Not seeing any. I will now open the public hearing for this item. Kristen, do we have any callers for 532 5th Street?
No callers.
Thank you. We'll close the public hearing portion. Would any commissioner like to make a motion on this application? Commissioner Fortner?
Get off mute this time.
Yeah.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 532 5th Street a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to install a gas meter on the north side elevation 3 feet from the northeast corner of the house as shown in the application. As proposed, the work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, materials in relationship to the building and the surrounding area, and meets the City of Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for mechanical equipment and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and the guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for mechanical systems.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner White. Commissioner Fortner, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion?
I would just note once again that, although this is still problematic in my opinion, but the fence at least helps. And if a condition could once again be added, that they utilize the existing penetration, I would be willing to support the project.
Commissioner Rockland, did you have something you wanted to add? Okay. Commissioner Fortner, are you okay adding that?
Do you want me to restate it?
I think we're okay, correct, Ms. Thatcher? Any further discussion? We can move to a vote. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning work on your project. All right. Item F7, 913 West Liberty Street. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
Okay, 913 West Liberty is a 2-story gable fronter in the Old West Side Historic District that features wide board eave trim, an ornate full-width front porch, and a cut stone foundation. It's listed in the 1894 Polk City Directory as number 8. No, this is not right. I'm sorry. I've got the wrong staff report. All right, 913 West Liberty is not that old. It's a 1.5-story craftsman that features triple and quad 3/1 windows, a large shed dormer on the front, a full-width shed roof front porch, shingle cladding, and a sculpted block basement. First appears in city directories in 1928 as the home of Mrs. Rome and Arthur Hagen. And this one is on the south side of West Liberty, between South 7th and 8th Street. And the applicant is seeking HDC approval to install a gas meter 2 feet from the front corner of the house. And that would be on the west side. So not the side that you're seeing here, but the other side. Take a look at this picture. You can see that this is a really narrow space. It's like 10 feet and it's all driveway. So it would be completely inappropriate to put a meter along this elevation of the house. The proposal is to put it 2 feet back from the front on the other side of the house. And that would put it over here behind this landscaping. I'll show you a close up in a second. You can see that there's some, utilitarian stuff going on the side of the house already. They have a couple of vents, and here's a close up. Again, landscaping isn't forever, but this one at least has a little bit of shielding. At first, I was concerned as always and hoping that they could push it farther back, but really by putting the meter up here closer, it's going to be much easier to hide than if it's on this big, long, exposed wall farther back. I think you would see it even more, and there's going to be even less chance that it's ever going to be obscured by landscaping or vegetation. Here's the meter location. You can see that it's between the front porch and the first basement window. The applicant states that the meter cannot be moved back farther because it would require more than 10 feet of fuel line. So staff does believe that this, if it has to go on this side of the house, that is a more appropriate place than putting it farther back, unless it could go way at the very back of the house. But that's obviously going to be a lot more than 10 feet from the current meter location. A couple more photos provided by the applicant, and it is a post-mounted meter. So thank you. That's it for the staff report.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioner Ross, do you want to start first? Or
Sure. So this house kind of sits has a somewhat of an unusual kind of cant to it. So it's kind of a little bit kind of, unfortunately, we don't have a picture showing the house to the right, or do we possibly? A little bit. So there's a pretty kind of pronounced kind of gap between this house and the house next door. I do agree with Ms. Thatcher's characterization of what's going on. Once again, yes, this driveway is very narrow. And based on the applicant's description of, hey, if you put a meter at a location where the driveway is, then they would have to put some sort of bumpers around, which would be even more kind of intrusive stuff. So clearly that elevation doesn't make sense. Once again, I do believe just because of that big kind of gap between this house and the house next door, I'm just supporting Ms. Thatcher's opinion that pushing it back would be way more visible than just pushing it forward, so that at least you've got this landscaping to kind of mask it. So once again, I acknowledging that landscaping is not forever, but it's better than nothing. So that's, I generally support staff's opinion, characterization, and recommendation.
Thank you, Commissioner Ross. I would also second the staff report and Commissioner Ross's comments. Even though that space is a little bit more wide open due to the way that this house sits on the lot, the driveway side is just absolutely not a possibility. And I think, again, locating this one closer toward the front in this particular instance does help conceal it a little bit more. Just to note, I think in one of the photos we had that vent is further down, maybe past the window. So this might not be an instance where we'd want to see the fuel line running all the way past that window and to the meter if it's only proposed to be about 3 feet from the front. But that might be a discussion point. I don't think I have any additional comments. Commissioners, do you have any questions for review committee or for applicant? Devon or Brian or Kais, do you have anything to add for this particular installation?
I do not. I don't know if Devon has anything. Thanks.
No, I do not either. I appreciate you guys understanding kind of why we chose the location, though.
Certainly. Commissioner Rockley?
Sure. Is your intention, Devon, to utilize that existing vent opening or not, or have you not determined that yet?
I haven't determined that yet because the homeowner, she was kind of skeptical about how many feet of pipe would be exposed on the outside of her home. So once we have approval from your staff and we get out on that street, that'll be a further conversation with her as far as what she would like to see cosmetically, once she kind of sees the pipe. Generally what we try to do, and we've done it already this year, if we have to run an extension of pipe down the side of the house, I'll have my guys actually paint it the same color as the house to help them out. And it just depends on the homeowner.
Thanks. Any additional questions? I will now open the public hearing portion for this item at 913 West Liberty. Christian, do we have any callers?
No callers.
Okay. We'll close the public hearing and move on to the next point. Would any commissioner like to make a motion? Commissioner Rockland.
Sure. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 913 West Liberty Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to install a gas meter on the west side elevation 2 feet from the front corner of the house, as shown in the application. As proposed, the work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, materials, and relationship to the building and the surrounding area, and meets the City of Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for mechanical equipment and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for mechanical systems.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Rockland, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion? Do any other commissioner? Go ahead, Commissioner Rockland.
I guess I'll just say, like, to support what Devon's plan is, I think I'd be fine with, first of all, the meter being located there, and second of all, just having the homeowner decide if they want, penetration, an added penetration close to the meter, or utilizing that existing penetration and painting the vent, or the fuel line. Okay. Sounds reasonable.
Any additional comments from commissioners? Okay. Seeing none, we can move on to a vote. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 All of those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning work on your project. Now move on to item F8, 526th Street.
.526th Street is in the Old West Side Historic District. It's a 2-story gable fronter that features wide board eave trim, an ornate full width front porch, and a cut stone foundation. It's listed in the 1894 Polk Directory as number 86th Street, the Shuttley residence. The house is located on the west side of 6th, south of West Jefferson and north of West Madison. And the applicant is seeking HDC approval to install a gas meter on the south side elevation 1 foot from the front corner of the house, which puts it right here. This is a very significant historic house in that it has much more of its original ornate trim than many houses in the Old West Side. You can see from the porches that it's a more elaborate example of a sort of a carpenter Queen Anne. Probably started out life as a gable fronter with this wide board trim, and then had some of this bric-a-brac added to it later on, would be my guess. That's just speculation, though. It does have a cut stone foundation you can see here on one side, and there's a path leading to the side porch. A lot of these side porches are gone. It's great to see that this one is still present on this house. This is a 2-story addition on the side here. So the applicant states that the meter cannot be moved farther back to maintain less than 10 feet of fuel line, and that the manifold will have minimal visibility due to an existing bush. I think that bush is not here anymore. The landscaping seems to have been redone. Here's the spot 1 foot behind the front corner of the house where it's proposed to be relocated to. There's a closer up. It really would be right in front of this pathway to the side porch, and right front and center amongst all of these really cool historic features of the house. I think that this is an unfortunate location to propose. Just for reference, we shot a picture of the other side of the house. This is a little bit more utilitarian. It's got some, you can't really see it, but it's got a little bit of other lines or wires running over on this side of the house. And then you run into an addition that goes out this way. The meter location, it's just past the front of the house. And these are some photos provided by the applicant. So running back up here, I did this morning have an unrelated meeting with the owner of this house, and asked him if he would be attending the meeting tonight. He could not attend, but he did express that he doesn't want the meter there. And I think that since it really interferes visually with a lot of historic features of this house, that it is a totally inappropriate place to put it. The owner of the house also added that they'll be redoing their basement extensively and moving their furnace at some point in the, not unforeseeable future. I didn't ask him for a date or anything. I don't think it's like imminent work, but it may be worthwhile to have a conversation with him and DTE and see if we can figure out a way to put this meter someplace where it's going to end up anyway after that remodel is done, and someplace that's more appropriate in terms of the Historic District Commission. So staff does recommend denial of this and believes that it does not meet the Secretary of the Interior standards and guidelines and the Ann Arbor Historic District guidelines. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. I'll go ahead and go first on this one. I agree with staff's recommendation to deny this application. I think that the location of this meter on this corner in particular, especially with these two ports, this is one of the main character defining, these are two main character defining features of this house, right? These side porches, the corner condition. Really, I think this is the main entry and side entry of the home. They're really the focal points. I think putting a meter right in that particular location would completely detract from the house and interrupt the character defining features. The other side would be, I think, a much more preferred location if it had to be within the front, but given the additional information that staff just provided, I certainly think that this application should be denied. Commissioner Ross.
I agree wholeheartedly with the chair and with staff on this one. Yeah, when we were out there, it was clearly, once again, a problematic location. This elevation, or the location of it next to the side porch, although it is a side elevation, the location of the porch there and the kind of, it reads as a clearly character defining elevation. And the meter there would be highly visible and would certainly detract from the historic character and all the really nice detail at this location. So I guess, once again, just kind of following up on staff's question to the applicant around, is there the potential to pause this, have a discussion with the owner around a alternative location based on their future plans.
Thank you, Commissioner Ross. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone and provide any additional information for the staff and commission?
Well, of course, we'll go back and revisit it and see if there's any other options that are more appealing, to both the commission and the homeowner. I can't assure that there are any options. Again, have not been there. I'll have my direct staff meet Devon out on site when it's convenient with the homeowner or customer and see what other options are available. As far as the timing and home improvements that are gonna happen at some point, unfortunately, at some point, and I don't have a date in front of me, but at some point this summer or into the fall, that gas main that it's currently connected to will be being abandoned. So we'll need to have a solution prior to that point. But it's one that I'm sure that maybe there are other options somehow between all parties. Come up with something that is feasible and acceptable, right?
Devon or Kais, do you have anything else to add?
No, like Brian said, we'll reconvene and see what we can do to get a better location within the parameters of the construction that the homeowner plans on doing in the future.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Rockland?
Yeah, I have a couple comments and then a question. The comments are just, we're all trying to find these, it's like the best, worst option in all these that are being presented, obviously, for us here. And I just, the comment of this manifold will have minimal visibility due to an existing bush. I don't know. That's just not helpful at all to us. And then also the photo that you've taken where it's basically cropped around the sign of meter location. It would just be, I guess, helpful to have more context for the meter location photo. And I think that in general, you're providing that. And so I was just kind of, this application totally threw me. And then I was quite relieved to hear the staff report and then, my commissioner's comments also, because I didn't know, I was very confused by the staff report, and then it's become clear now. So those were my comments. My question is, in the staff report, there was a photo of a ceiling in the basement. And so I was just, why was that included?
That was part of the application package, and maybe one of the gentlemen can explain why that was included. I wasn't sure what the meaning of that was.
Me neither.
Kaiser, Devon, do either of you recall what that basement interior photo of a window and a ceiling was for?
So I believe it was to show that the basement was drywalled, finished. All the fuel lines are completely covered with drywall, except for a utility room where the washer, the dryer, and the furnace are kind of tucked in the center of the home. The homeowner, when I met with them, they talked about a possible remodel. They said they were in conversations with you guys about a chimney removal, I believe, or a chimney relocation.
Yeah.
I don't know if that rings a bell.
Yep.
And so that's probably why, that's why I included that picture, to show that the basement was finished, other than the cubby where the fuel line entered the home where the meter currently is.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll open the public hearing portion for 526th Street. Christian, do we have any callers?
No callers.
Okay. We'll close the public hearing portion and let's see, would any commissioner like to make a motion?
I could. I guess I just have since this is kind of leaning towards a denial, a question to staff. So would I just move for a denial, or should I move in the affirmative?
Yeah, yep, we're always moving in the affirmative now. And if it doesn't get a majority vote of those present, or 3 votes in this case, it would not be passed.
Okay, and this is 520.
Correct, 6th Street.
Sorry, I should have had this out. Okay. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 526th Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to install a gas meter on the south side elevation, 1 foot from the corner of the house as shown in the application. As proposed, the work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, materials, in relationship to the building and the surrounding area, and meets the City of Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for mechanical equipment and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10. in the guidelines for mechanical systems.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Ross, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion? Commissioner Rockland?
Sure. I guess this is an unfortunate case where, this is clearly like the best, worst location as we've seen in all these other ones, but it just, for all the reasons we've heard, is not appropriate from, the historic district standards. And so, I just am echoing what I've heard and just hopefully we can come up with a solution here that can fulfill both, I guess, what we're looking for and also, what we need to get the homeowner it sounds like we do have a deadline approaching, one way or another, this has got to be resolved when the line gets shut down.
Any additional comments? I just want to add that, as we've already stated, I think, we see a number of these, especially coming before us in the commission. They're located close to the front, or they're on the side in a really prominent position, and the majority have been approved with, I think, pretty consistent, review and consideration for each particular instance and location. And I think the location of this particular one, just kind of looking back at the guidelines, some of these, they say specifically don't destroy any character defining materials or any materials on the house. But I think in this particular case, though there might be very little actual damage to the materials, it's in a very prominent location of the house, and I think would destroy or obscure character defining features of the overall house itself. This being a very prominent, it's right on the front corner in a very prominent location in an area where the house actually, that corner of the house is very well defined by the location of the front porches. I think that this would highly detract from the character of this particular house. So I just want to make that clear. That is, I think, one of the major guidelines that we are looking at right now. If there is no additional discussion, we can move to a vote. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes. All of those opposed, please say no.
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 No. No.
Right. The motion does not carry. Your application has been denied. I think that is it. We can now move on to item F9, 537 2nd Street.
I'm sorry, got the wrong slide up. Let me get out of here.
Oh wait, you know what? F9 was scratched from the.
Yeah, so this F9 was advertised, but then I realized that the application was not signed by the homeowner, so it couldn't go before the commission. So it's considered incomplete. It's not under the 60-day timeline or anything. It's simply incomplete. But we need to hold the public hearing because we advertised it. So
okay, so I can open the public hearing.
Public hearing and nothing else.
Okay, so I would like to now open the public hearing for 537 2nd Street. Kristen, do we have any callers?
Kristen has left the meeting, and no, we have no callers.
Okay, great. So I will close the public hearing and for 537 2nd Street, and we can close this hearing item. So item F10, 610 West Madison Street.
All right, 610 West Madison. So on the Old West Side, laborer John Huss was the first occupant of this gable fronter in 1911. It features 1 3/4 stories, corner returns, wide board eave trim, a full width front porch, and sculpted block foundation walls. It's on the north side of West Madison Street, west of 4th and east of 5th Street. And the applicant is seeking HDC approval to install a gas meter on the front elevation 1 foot from the southeast corner of the house. The application states that the homeowners have requested that the meter manifold be installed where the existing outlet valve, outside valve, and regulator are currently located. It also says visibility from the street will be minimal due to existing bushes. So the existing valve and regulator are right here on the front of the house, in the corner with the front porch. It would be right against this wall here. And I'm gonna just run through these pictures a minute. It's in here. It's behind all these grapevines, which, yes, does have some obscuring foliage in front of it. But when we were on site, we were speaking to the homeowner, and the homeowner said that he and his wife no longer support this location. They said it was correct that at first they wanted it there, but now they've decided that they implied that there was another spot on the back of the house that they had also considered, and that spot would be better. So it's tough to, I didn't get into the technicalities of whether the application is still valid if the homeowner no longer wants their signature on it. But I'm leaving it on the agenda, and I communicated to DTE, and I hope that that other location is actually a live option and that they can tell us more about it tonight. That's it for the staff report.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioners Ross and myself were on the review committee. Commissioner Ross, do you want to start on this one?
Yeah, so just confirming the fact that we did talk to, I mean, it's kind of as soon as we approached or arrived on at the parcel, that the homeowner did come in and talk to us about an alternative location. And this one, once again, this proposed location right at the front is not ideal in terms of, at least in my opinion, in terms of the standards. Although there's the bush there, it's kind of the equipment creep to where it's on the side, and we've got to live with that, and now it's moving to the front. And there's and I think we also talked about the fact that the driveway is to the right. So the driveway was somewhat close to this location as well. So we talked about that a little bit with the homeowner. So I guess I would just kind of echo staff's kind of question going to DTE around the potential to move this based on the homeowner's desire and willingness to see it moved elsewhere.
Thank you, Commissioner Ross. I agree with both Commissioner Ross's comments and Ms. Thatcher's comments. Though there is existing equipment here, and it is really well shielded at the moment with this vine, it's especially being on the driveway side and very close to the driveway. I think that the opposite side would be more preferable, and definitely further back would be much more preferable, especially given that the homeowner has stated that they would like to see it in an alternate location and not on the front of the house. So I think I would also like to get more information from DTE on this particular application. See, commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant, or does the applicant have any additional information they can provide for the commission?
Absolutely. I met with Tom, super nice guy, and at the time he was wanting to reuse the hole that was currently existing, which is where the valve and regulator is. And but we did look at the alternate location. That's not a problem. It's on the far back side. There's already a fuel line run that goes to the back corner of the house that would be an adequate tie-in. It's not a problem at all. Had I been aware of this, we would have changed the application before this meeting and not taking your guys' time.
Commissioner Rockland, did you have anything you wanted to
I
ask?
think it's a moot point
Yeah. Okay.
I'll save it.
Well, I think what we can do is change the motion and say that it's going to be on the back side of the house. If the customer wants it that way, and DTE said there's no problem, why don't we change our motion?
You could do that. I would hope that you would put some sort of condition in there that the location still has to be indicated on a map and reviewed by staff.
That's correct. All of the above.
Just to make sure it's back there. But yeah, you could approve it on the condition that it be moved to a different location. Can you guys explain where on the house was the other location?
It would be on the back. Let's see. It would be on the. Would that be the northwest corner? If you were to look at the house, I believe just behind the. I believe there's a bay window. It would be behind the bay window because the customer had concerns that if we were to drill, if we could stay out away from the footing underneath the bay window. Isn't there a bay window there? Yep. It'd be right behind that bay window.
Behind that little bump there?
The northwest corner, opposite the driveway. Behind that.
That is correct.
So just a quick question to staff. So Ms. Thatcher, had they initially proposed the location at this kind of alternative area? Is that something that you could have staff approved?
I could have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in theory, if we deny this, as long as they're proposing it, as per this discussion, you could staff approve it anyway.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, you could do it either way. You could deny this one and I could staff approve a new one, or you could condition this one and approve it.
Well, I like to keep our record high on approvals. So I'm willing to have them, us change the motion, approve it for the northwest corner. And then they have to do, and give you drawings and give staff the drawings for the new location. And we'll be done with it.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Any other discussion or comments? We can do the public hearing and then maybe loop back to the motion. So I'll open the public hearing for 610 West Madison. Do we have any callers to make any public comment?
No callers.
Okay. Closing the public hearing. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion?
Do that.
Commissioner Fortner, you are on mute.
Sorry, I can do that with some help on how we want to describe the new location.
I think
so. It's going to be on the west elevation.
Northwest, it's a corner.
Right.
But on the west elevation.
Yes.
Yeah, west elevation behind the bay window.
Yes.
With the condition that it be documented as such and submitted to
staff for approval.
For review and approval.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, let me give that a go. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 610 West Madison Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to install a gas meter on the west elevation behind the bay window, under the condition that it is documented as such and submitted to staff for approval. As proposed, the work is compatible in exterior design, arrangements, materials, and relationship to the building and the surrounding area, and meets the City of Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for mechanical equipment and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for mechanical systems.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner White, Commissioner Fortner, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion? I think the amendment is completely appropriate for that location. Thank you for making that condition, Commissioner Fortner. Are we ready for a vote?
Yes.
All right. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 Yeah.
All of those opposed, please say no. All right, the motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning your project. On to item F11, 519 4th Street. Is that the...
All right. 519 4th is in the Old West Side Historic District. It's the Adolph Seitz house. It was first occupied in 1914 per Polk City Directories. Features second floor shingles and a gabled wall dormer, first floor lap siding and a bay window and a full width front porch. It's on the east side of 4th Street, south of West Jefferson and north of West Madison. The applicant states, let me show you where they want to put it first. It's right here. It's 2 feet from the southwest corner, front corner of the house. And the application states that the homeowners have requested that the meter be installed in the proposed location because the basement is completely finished. They do not want the meter on the driveway side of the house. Further, the meter manifold is proposed as far back as possible due to stairs in the home. All right, so on this house, it's a wide open view of the side of the house. I'm standing on the sidewalk when I took this, but it is the more utilitarian side. The other side does have the driveway. It has a bay window. It has a wall dormer. It's the fancy side of the house. This is the side that has a lot of vents and ducts and a meter back here, some telephone equipment here, and you can see the little, I can't forget already what the DTE people called that, but that little vent through the skirt board there. The location is right here, right up close to the front of the house. There's the side of the house, the other side that has stuff going on, more architectural features and interest. Meter location right by the front. This one doesn't really have much screening. And this is another one where, it's a little bit of a hard sell, but it's right next to the existing inside meter location. It seems like there wouldn't be a new penetration except for that slightly enlarged vent through the wall. Given that this is the more utilitarian side of the house, I'm tacitly think that this should be approved and meets the standards and guidelines. It would be really great if it could be back here, but maybe DTE can explain why it cannot. It sounds like there's some interior configuration from these stairs going down to the basement and other things going on. Thank you.
Ms. Thatcher. I agree with staff's report on this for this address. I do think this is the better side to install the gas meter. Unlike some of the other instances, this one is really wide open. There really is no landscape screening or fencing or anything. The bikes were parked there. So, definitely temporary, but I don't know. It's really close to the front corner and it's kind of on a dominant corner. It is helpful to hear some, the information that DTE provides and homeowners' preferences in their statement. So any of that comment is certainly welcome and encouraged if we can have any additional information. Commissioner Ross.
Yeah, just to echo the chair and staff has noted. And I do appreciate staff's assessment. And, once we were out there, we did note that in terms of existing penetrations and other kind of equipment going on at this location, we did see a number of that type of equipment, or I wouldn't say equipment, but kind of pipes and so forth on this elevation. I guess just to echo my fellow commissioners, it's just kind of the best of the worst, choices. But certainly locating it on the other elevation where the driveway is clearly is not ideal. But I would say, although there is no landscaping and it is super open, no, I mean, I feel that its impact is softened somewhat by the existence of a number of utilitarian kind of equipment.
Thank you.
Not great.
It's a good evaluation.
Yeah.
Let's see. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone and provide any additional information to the staff report?
So on this particular house, if you look at where that door is, the entry door on the side of the house, that stairway goes to the west. It's a wide open stairway. So if we would have moved the meter back towards that door, our fuel line would essentially be in whoever uses that stairs headspace. And then behind the door, and then where the addition is on that side of the home, it's finished. So the applicant asked that if we put it on that side, because as you can see in the picture, the AT&T, their phone cable box is there. In the back, when they put their addition on, they had an upgraded electrical service. So, you know, she kind of made the comment that that's my utility side of my house, not my pretty side. And, you know, we can reuse the existing vent line coming through, you know, to try to put the meter as low to the ground as possible and try to keep it as, you know, less visual as possible, given on that side of the house with everything they got going on.
Thank you, Devin. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Okay, move on to the public hearing for 519 4th Street. Ms. Thatcher, do we have any callers? Okay. All right, we'll close the public hearing. Is there any commissioner that would like to make a motion on this application? Commissioner Rockland?
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 519 4th Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to install a gas meter on the south side elevation, 2 feet from the front corner of the house, as shown in the application. As proposed, the work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, materials, and relationship to the building and the surrounding area, and meets the City of Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for mechanical equipment and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for mechanical systems.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Rockland, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion?
Sure. I would just kind of jump in and just reiterate, once again, it's my opinion. It's not due to the high visibility of this elevation. It's a little tough for me, but I feel a little bit less kind of leaning towards denial, springy denial, due to the fact that this elevation is more kind of utilitarian, I guess if you want to say, quote unquote, less character defining than the opposite elevation. So I appreciate that working with the homeowner, there was the effort to kind of locate it towards the quote unquote less pretty elevation of the home.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. Are we ready for a vote?
Yes.
Great. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 All of those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning work on your project. On to item F12, 545 6th Street.
We are still in the Old West Side Historic District. This 1 3/4 story gable fronter features wide board trim in the gables, a full width front porch with turn posts and decorative trim along the top, and 2/1 windows. It was formerly number 15 6th Street per the 1894 city directory, and it was occupied by Mrs. Weedman, who lived here into the 1920s. It's on the east side of 6th, south of West Jeff and north of West Madison, And the applicant is seeking HTC approval to install a gas meter on the north side elevation, 1 foot from the front corner of the house. All right, here we are. This is the historic portion of the house. Obviously, it's had a couple of large additions placed on the back. Proposed location is right around the corner, 1 foot from the front. There is an existing valve and regulator here. You can see it. It's already there on that manifold. The application states that the homeowners have requested the meter manifold be installed where the existing outside valve and regulator are. Staff believes this is a reasonable request since no new penetration through the house will be required. I'm a little more lenient about reusing existing stuff that's already on the building. Again, this is not a good location. It's too visible. It's too close to the front. But you know, this junk is here, and putting a meter on there is not going to be the end of the world. This is a house with a few more character-defining features than most. It does seem a little less obvious, though, than the one we had trouble with earlier, because this isn't a walkway. You can't, you're not going right past this. Your eye is not drawn to this. This is not anything super eye-catching that would attract your attention. It's this front elevation that really is the most character-defining. So you can see here where it already enters in through the skirt board. And staff recommends approval of this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patrick. I think mostly agree with Ms. Thatcher's report. Since the manifold and regulator is already here, it makes sense to reuse the spot. Again, it is very close to the front, especially whenever it's in front of one of the windows of the house, and there's a lot of existing character-defining features that are still intact and very nicely so. It'd be nice if this were located a little bit lower or mounted a little bit lower, but it looks like it is already. I think the bracket is already attached to the wood trim. So I wouldn't necessarily want to, say remove this and mount it lower. But I also wouldn't be opposed to that.
That might be a good idea.
There would be no additional penetrations from the gas line. At some point, if that is removed, those would be patched. So, that I'd be a little bit more in support if it were mounted lower, just because it is so close to the window. Not just location, on more so the height of the window. Commissioner Ross, do you have anything else to add?
Nothing really additional to add. I kind of second and support everything Chair and staff has noted. Yes, it's definitely highly visible, but in the spirit of supporting no new penetrations or destruction of the historic material, it's there. So I feel like it makes sense and it's practical to relocate the new equipment in that location. And I do like the idea of lowering it, so at least we could somewhat mitigate the incompatible appearance of this equipment.
Thank you, Commissioner Ross. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone and provide any additional information regarding the staff report and review committee report?
Absolutely. We can most definitely look at the avenue of putting this meter on a post, lowering it. As long as the homeowner's on board with, silicone or a filler where the lag bolts, where the meter bracket was, we can most definitely shorten this up, make it a little bit more compact, and to be within the parameters of DTE's codes and standards, as well as what you guys look for, aesthetically and, to make it look more pleasing to the general public and the residents.
Thank you, Devon. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll open the public hearing for 545 6th Street. Ms. Thatcher, do we have any callers?
No callers.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing portion. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion? Commissioner Rockland.
Sure.
Thank you.
No problem. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 545 6th Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to install a gas meter on the north side elevation. Okay. 1 foot from the corner of the house at an existing valve and regulator, as shown in the application. As proposed, the work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, materials in relationship to the building and the surrounding area, and meets the City of Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for mechanical equipment and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for mechanical systems.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Rockland, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion? I guess, I just want to make sure that we're, I guess, all in agreement, or see if there's any additional comment regarding if it's installed at the height that it's already mounted on the building. Are we still okay with that? Is it obstructing some of the character defining features?
I'd like to see it lowered. Especially if the homeowner and DTE is willing to do that. Just my opinion.
I would say that I would support that. I mean, you will have to fill a couple holes, it sounds like, in the wood, and then you would have to paint those holes. But I think that doesn't see, that's asking the homeowner to do something. I guess I'd ask if Devon, it sounds like he's painted things before. Devon, is that something, can I ask, is that something that you guys would handle for the homeowner, or would the homeowner then be on the hook for patching holes and painting?
We would fill the holes with maybe a clear silicone caulk. As far as painting the house, painting a fuel line is one thing. To paint a house, it depends on, I don't know.
I was just talking about the holes, Devon. Sorry to interrupt you right there, but yeah, I wasn't talking about painting the house. Yeah, just for the holes.
Yeah. If the customer has the paint available and it's going to match clearly, absolutely, we'll touch the holes up and to make them feel better.
Okay, thank you. It seems not asking too much then. So.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's, preference that it gets moved lower, but I guess, if the homeowner's not amenable to it, I just want to make sure that, as the commission, we're clear that we're also saying it's okay mounted where it is.
No, why don't we just say in the motion? I don't know how to do this the right way, but should we put it in the motion that it should be post-mounted per the typical post-mounted? It's going to make it a better institution. And Devon's going to take care of the repairs.
Let the owner have his choice. Just put both of them in there.
Well,
let the owner make his choice. If they decide, yes, I'd like to have it lowered, or no, I don't want any more holes in my house.
Right. It's a good point. It's already there. So
that's correct.
Yeah.
And they stated it can be painted. So
right, the meter.
I guess it can. Yeah, it will still be visible. Okay.
I guess just to circle back on that, I would say we don't have to put anything in the motion then, because it's implied that it could be as proposed or
amend.
Yes,
Right.
I guess, Devin, will you propose that to the owner then, or how will you move forward on this if we don't change the motion?
No, absolutely. I mean, when we start on the street, you know, generally I talk, especially with the historic homes, I will speak to each homeowner, you know, and we will kind of put like a template up on the wall just so they see, even though, you know, it's been approved, but nobody's actually seen it. So once the homeowner sees it, I'll most definitely give him the option and say, hey man, we can drop this down, we can, or, you know, tuck it, we can shorten the nipple length up so that it's a little more obscure to the you know, to the eye. And if he says okay, then that's what we'll do. If he says no, I don't want no hole drilled in my house, I want it left where it is, then, you know, that's kind of where we'll leave it based on your guys' approval.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Fair enough.
Great. Any additional discussion? Let's move to a vote. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 All of those opposed, please say no. Great. The motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning work on your project. On to item F13, 554 6th Street. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
This two-story gable fronter on the Old West Side features 3/1 windows and nearly full width front porch with a gable roof, lap-sided porch walls, and tapered square half-height posts. It was first occupied in 1924 by painter Herman Gauss. It's on the east side of 6th Street, south of West Jeff and north of West Madison Street, and the applicant is seeking HCC approval to install a gas meter on the front elevation 1 foot from the southeast corner of the house. So this is the north elevation of the house. Meters proposed to go on the other side. Note that there's a big arborvitae or something like that here. Location of the meter is below this no parking sign on the front or east elevation of the house. It would be where this black trash can is, basically. Things to note about this application are that there is a driveway, a shared driveway that's fairly narrow, and putting the meter on the south elevation proper would probably be a bad idea and require bollards. And also, there's the map of where it's proposed to go. Also, I'd like you to keep in mind that the other side of the house, this is just some more photos, that area, there's the meter location. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. There's the interior. The other side of the house is wide open to view. Everybody can see everything that's going on this side of the house. I'm like as behind the bushes as you can possibly get. There's a big gap here between stuff, and you can see the whole side of this house. Whereas this front, where the meter's going, you really don't see that at all unless you're looking for it. I mean, if you're standing in the driveway, yes, you'll be able to see the meter, but that's really the only spot because this tree does a heck of a job. Trees go away, trees are not forever, but this is again one of those making the best of a worse situation. I would not want it on this south elevation, and I really don't think it would be much of an improvement to put it on the north elevation, even though it's got a radon mitigation chimney that clearly didn't get a staff approval, and it's got like an AC unit and stuff over here, but you can see it all, and so staff does support this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioner Ross, do you want to go ahead?
Could I add one thing?
Sure.
This was proposed by the homeowners because the rear half of the basement is finished and they don't want to mess with the drywall. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I can go ahead and start on this one. So I agree with staff's report. I think that, especially looking at this photo, you can see that that whole elevation is pretty well visible. We did, kind of talk about it on site. initially we saw the proposed location and thought that wasn't necessarily a good spot for it, and walked over here, but noticed how wide open this elevation really is. And even though the radon mitigation system is there, this is really the visible portion of the house. I think that the front itself is probably the more character defining. As you go to the driveway side, it's really narrow. There's the large tree on one side. There's another shrub on the neighbor's, just right on the corner of the neighbor's property. It is a little bit better shielded. I'm still, I guess, maybe slightly concerned about its location, but more so because the driveway is so narrow. So I am curious whether or not a bollard may be needed, just to make sure that that's protected. But I think, again, it's maybe the best of the worst cases in this particular instance. We don't have the clear, this is the utility side, this is the non-utility side. I do think that the front and more front, I would say it's the northeast elevation is the more character defining instance of this particular home. Commissioner Ross?
Yeah, once again, just kind of echoing the chair and staff's characterization of the situation. This one, similar to the first case, is very problematic to me. And I guess I would just pose the question to the applicant, how high up, or where specifically where this meter is going to go, given the trash cans are there. So I'm just kind of curious. Okay, because if it does turn out, because that driveway, just to echo the chair and staff once again, that driveway is pretty narrow, especially since it's shared. And if it's like, oh, oops, now we need to add a bollard, is that yet another intrusion at this front elevation? Although it's shaded by the arborvitae, I don't know. To me, it's problematic. But definitely that the opposite elevation is highly visible, has a lot of nice landscaping. So clearly that's not the best location either. So this one's a little rough.
Thank you, Commissioner Ross. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone and provide any additional information to the staff report and review committee report?
Yeah, so as you can see, the meter location, the meter actually will set like that. By setting the meter like that, we can slide that ballard post in closer, which doesn't affect the driveway at all. The homeowner was made aware of that upon conversation, and his response was, well, if you put it close enough to the meter, I can line my trash cans up. The ballard post will be lower than the gas meter, so you wouldn't even be able to see it between the arborvitae and the trash can. The north side of this home is it's an apartment. So it's all finished ceiling. It's not drop finished ceiling. It's drywall finished ceiling. So to move it to the north side would be, an extensive amount of work. And it's just behind that, if you walk where the door is, just behind that door is actually a utility room. And that's the only unfinished part of that basement. So it would, be an extensive amount of work to get from the north side to the fuel line access.
Thank you, Devon. Are there any additional questions or for the applicant? So just to be clear, there will be a bollard installed. Is that correct? Okay. How many, and are they? What is the material? What are they? And are they painted? What do they look like?
There'll be one ballard. It'll be a 3-inch, steel post cut down to, just barely above the height of the meter. Generally, we paint them yellow. Upon DT's approval, the homeowner may be able to do other colors, but I can't speak to that. That would be a Brian Valeris question.
Okay. So you said it would be shorter than the meter. So would that approximately, would that be installed about, I don't know, foot or so in front of the corner of the house, or just, can you give an approximate location of where that would be?
So it would be just off the corner of the meter, and it would be a little bit taller than the meter, obviously, because we have to protect our meter. It'll have a concrete cap on it, just so that moisture doesn't get inside the steel pipe and cause it to rot. And then, generally we paint it gray or yellow, and, if the homeowner chooses a different color, that's the conversation that they would have to have with DTE.
Okay.
Yeah, the bollards they're very similar. You've probably seen them in like commercial.
Mm-hmm.
They are in residential where you can't protect them in a driveway. The gas code is very specific that we have to protect the equipment from outside force. So there's, cars as an outside force, other things that are, outside force. Doesn't get specific to how far from the meter, and in that it would be, at the point of construction, how is this going to be? How is this concrete? That's what we use. We use concrete filled pipe. So that it's solid. There has been testing saying that is sufficient to protect a 5 to 10 mile per hour vehicle bumping into it and not, hitting the gas meter first. So we use 3-inch pipe, so 3-inch in diameter pipe, and we fill it with concrete. We bury it below the ground so that it's anchored. And then we will either put a piece of yellow pipe on top of it. We don't paint it yellow. We would put a piece of yellow pipe on top of it as like a cap, plastic pipe. Mm-hmm. And most times we put 2 of them, but sometimes we can clearly see that it's a one-way outside force heading in that direction. So you don't need the 2, but sometimes you'll see them commonly installed with 2.
Thank you. And Ms. Thatcher, can you remind me, was that in the report? I didn't remember.
No,
Okay.
This is new.
Okay. Just for the applicant's awareness and anyone else's, if there is going to be a bollard installed, that's something that we would want to know about and should be included in there as part of the information, because that, especially the height and what you're describing, it also impacts, the visual obstruction or potential visual obstruction. Any additional questions for the applicant?
Actually, I have a question for Ms. Thatcher. If we can go back to that photo showing the garbage cans sitting in front of the house.
That one?
Not to your screen yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I guess back to the applicant, since this piece wasn't included in the application, so then you'll have the piece of equipment which will be kind of bumping out of the wall, and then you'll have the bollard which will create even I guess wider footprint, I guess what you would say. So as this property owner is putting these garbage cans here, is that going to force then the garbage cans to even be, so you're going to have the equipment, the bollard, and then the garbage cans pushed even more kind of forward towards the front of the house? Is that, I mean, not to say like, hey, we're going to make a decision based on the placement of garbage cans, but
if I could just chime in here, it's actually not allowed to keep those garbage cans there. They're supposed to be behind the front wall of the house, not behind the front wall of the front porch. So technically they should be keeping them behind the house. If a neighbor complains, they'll be asked to move them and they'll get a ticket if they don't move them. It's all complaint driven.
Gotcha.
Since there's that big tree there, that's likely why nobody's complained.
Okay. So I just fear that it's just not only going to be just in and of itself detracting from the front elevation, although we have the tree, because these folks are used to putting their garbage cans there, it's just going to press, now you're going to have all this, you're going to have this equipment, this bumper, and then the trash cans being pushed for like closer to the sidewalk. And
Yeah, I think the addition of multiple pieces of equipment make it a little bit
just messier.
different consideration. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
let's see. We can move on. If there's no other questions for the applicant, we can move on to the public hearing. So I will now open the public hearing for 554 6th Street. Ms. Thatcher, do we have any callers?
No callers.
Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing portion. Would any commissioner like to make a motion on this application?
I can do that. This is
Commissioner
5.
Ross?
Thank you. This is 554.
Correct.
Okay. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 554 6th Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to install a gas meter on the front elevation 1 foot to the southeast corner of the house as shown in the application. As proposed, the work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement materials in relationship to the building and the surrounding area, and meets the City of Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for mechanical equipment and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for mechanical systems.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Ross, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion?
Actually, I have a quick question for staff. So this piece with the bollard, as it's not included in the current application, would the motion have to be modified to include that piece, or?
It wouldn't have to be, since it's been discussed here at length.
Okay.
But if you want, you can require them to show it on something, on a drawing, the location and the height. Condition the motion on it being reviewed by staff, just to make sure it's not, 5 feet tall and blocking that basement window or something like that. But that's up to you. I don't think it's necessary that it has to be shown there or be included in the motion, unless you want it to be.
Okay. So, I guess based on that guidance, I would just modify my motion with the condition that the height, location, materiality be provided to staff for approval.
Got it. Thanks.
Support.
Thank you. Commissioner Racklin?
I'm sorry, I missed some of the discussion. Can someone quickly summarize if it is possible to put the meter on the other side of the front porch? So it'd be on the north side of basically the same location, but on the other side of the front porch. Was that discussed at all? And if it was, what was the reasoning? Is it a finished basement or the ceiling's finished or something?
No, the other side wasn't discussed, but I would put that question then to the applicant to talk about why it couldn't be moved to the opposite side.
Yeah, I guess before I get into, yeah, exactly. Is this really the the only spot that we can put it, and then we can discuss, but I just was curious, theoretically, could this be put, well, not theoretically, practically, can this be put on the other side of the porch, the north side of the porch? Like basically same location in front of the house, but north side of the porch. I guess that's a question for Deb. Yeah.
The opposite side of the house, the north side, like where you're wanting to go, is an apartment, and it's completely finished. And I looked at that because if it would have had a drop ceiling, I probably would have went that way. And when I mentioned to the homeowner possibly removing drywall, to run the fuel line through, he was absolutely adamant that we're not taking drywall down, that his mechanical room is on the south side.
Mhm.
And that's why we chose the location there, because
Yeah.
the furnace and the hot water heater are directly behind the stairs on the south side where that entry door is on the driveway, and that's the only unfinished part of the basement. Everything else is it's a completely finished apartment.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks, Devin.
Yes, sir.
Ready for a vote?
Do any other commissioners have any other comments, questions? I think with the addition of the bollard, I'm a little bit, more hesitant. I know I understand the limitations. I just am concerned about adding multiple pieces of equipment and infrastructure right at the front of the house on this corner. I know it is concealed, but I'm still a little bit on the fence about it. And I don't know if any other commissioner has any additional comments or observations, but if not, we can move to a vote.
Well, I think it was hard enough to convince yourself that this was a good location for a meter, and then I was on the fence to begin with, and then you find out about the bollard. So I think that's where I'm at too, and so I just am also needing a second to figure out, or I guess just get my mind around. Okay, it's a meter and a bollard, and there's no other location for it to go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the positives here is there is that landscaping, and it's hiding garbage cans enough that none of their neighbors have called to complain about them. So
Mm-hmm.
that's some positive to pull.
I agree.
I'm just looking back at the guidelines. Is the equipment installed in a manner that doesn't destroy historic materials or damage or obscure? There aren't any really, I guess, historic materials here that at this particular location that would be destroyed. If it's post mounted, it's minimal. Installing mechanical equipment and wiring in locations on the roof rear, that's really the big one. It's visible. I think, again, this visibility thing is the larger key component, especially with the addition of the bollard as additional infrastructure. So that they're kind of balanced for me at this point. So
Well, let's vote if it's up or down.
sounds good. All right. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of those opposed, please say no. No.
No.
All right. We have 3, so the motion does carry. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning work on your project. All right. On to item G, new business. G1, the election of officers.
Thank you, everyone from DTE and Corby.
Yes, thank you. Much appreciated.
Okay, yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good night. So election of officers. The election is necessary to replace the previous chair whose term has ended. Commissioner White, may I have a report from the nominating committee?
Yes, you may. for chair is Ann Epperson, Commissioner Epperson for chair. Commissioner Rotland for vice chair. And Commissioner Keano for secretary.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Does anyone have an additional nomination they would like to make from the floor? Seeing none, I would like to move the following slate of officers. Anna Epperson, Chair. David Rockland, Vice Chair. Jessica Quijano, Secretary. Is there support?
Support.
Support.
Without objection. You don't have to go that far. Without
Right.
objection, it's approved.
Is there any discussion on the motion? I think it's likely secession. I think it'll be good.
Congratulations
Thank you.
for everyone.
Since you made the
I guess-
motion, you better
yeah,
take the vote.
I know. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 Yes. All those opposed, please say no. All right, the motion
I thought-
carries.
But the key thing, it could be solved with no objection. No one was against that. So it automatically becomes approved. But we can vote for it, which we did.
Thank you, Anna and Dave.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you very much for serving. It's really an important task.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, and then we added item G2, discussion regarding gas meter installation and relocation, more specifically. So I just wanted to open up for discussion, potential, since we've reviewed multiple relocations now through the commission, and Ms. Thatcher has reviewed them through staff approval. Are there any, I think, additional, guidelines that we could set forth that may allow additional staff approval or help us in our determination through commission review? I think it's something that we could maybe discuss.
Well, here's the real problem that I see. A lot of this really should be grandfathered in, because what happens is they have all of their furnaces and hot water heaters are already in place, and they had meters inside. And all of a sudden they go outdoors, they want them outside. And our problem is, I can understand if it was a new home and we wanted to, you say we have these standards, we want to move them back 20 feet from the curb or from the front of the house. But our situation here is that they have the customers, or I should say the citizens, have already finished their basements. They have the utility situation, and all of a sudden they have to move their meters. And our problem is that the person says, well, just put them back just put it outside without, with different holes, but with the same holes if possible. And then we're trying to move them different locations. It's a situation where if we move it, and you have a situation where they have to pay $300, $400 to move the pipes back, now you have unhappy folks. And what DTE's trying to do is they're trying to just put them as close to where they have them already. And they're trying to keep their customers happy. And it's just a problem. And I know we have the standards here, but the standards were not designed for this situation. That's our problem.
And that's, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you, Commissioner.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead. What do you want to say?
I was just going to say, I think that's, I think something that I'm asking is, are there some new standards that we could, or suggested, guidelines that we could give to Ms. Thatcher and ourselves as these come up to, I'm happy to review these as a commission, but is this something that, is this a good use of time? Are things really clear to us and to homeowners and to Ms. Thatcher, she's reviewing them, that, you know, to make good decisions so that they, you know, if they are ending up in the front, is this something that, like, it's okay? Are there certain things that we want to see as a commission to help really preserve some of this historic character that could maybe be handled through staff approval?
Well, we had one.
Or not. I think it's something that we should just review at this point. Like, you know, we had a couple that there was some existing equipment there. I think, you know, we might be more amenable to approving them if there's existing equipment, but I think in both locations there were some things that, like, one was too high or the homeowner didn't prefer it there. So is there maybe a height guideline, or are those, do we feel like those are already taken care of in the guidelines that we have?
Well, we had one situation tonight where I was going to go in the front of the house, but the customer or the citizen said, I can put it in the back of the house. And DTE says, yes, you have a fuel line back there. So I think DTE is receptive to that situation without having the customer pay additional fees to have a plumber come in and put the gas line in. They had one already back there. And we have that situation where we can be flexible too. And we said, yeah, you can put it there or in the back. And, but I think the key thing on this one is just that it's a tough situation because they're just replacing meters. And they're not, I don't know if the citizen wants it replaced. Apparently this has been done by higher authorities.
Mm-hmm. It's a safety necessity.
There you go. And so we have a situation where we're trying to do this and we're trying to make it comfortable for everyone. Mm-hmm. But it's difficult when we want to try to move it somewhere. You know, you say, I like to move it 20 feet back into the middle of the back part of the house. And DTE says, you can do that, but we don't do that. You have to hire a plumber, you put the pipe in, and then we'll put it back there. But the customer says, I don't want it. I'll be happy to just have it being measured right out the side of the, close to where the meter is now. But it's difficult for us. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just not an easy task, but I think what we have to do is be sensitive where if it's possible, then they can make the choice. But we can do, I think what we should do is look at what about the east side, what about the west side, and they can explain to us why it can't be done. But the first choice, I think, should be where the citizen wants to put it.
Right, and I guess just to jump in or add to that, so currently staff has the authority to approve if they're located, is it towards the rear elevation or on the rear elevation, or how?
They can be, if they're on the rear elevation, staff will approve it. If they're beyond 15 feet from the front corners of the, historic part of the house, if it's got additions, beyond 15 feet, then staff can approve it if they can show me why they can't put it on the back.
Right. So if
there's a big deck, there's a deck all the way across the back.
Gotcha.
Or, there's an addition that's on a slab and something like that, where it would be difficult to put the meter back there. Then they can show me just the drawings that you're seeing here, the footprint drawings with the meter location. And they give me pictures of that elevation to make sure no character defining features are being interrupted by it.
Gotcha.
And it also needs to be beyond the first basement window if there is one.
Gotcha.
So if the basement window is 18 feet back, I'm going to ask them to put it at 19 feet instead of at 15 feet.
Gotcha. So, and we kind of, getting back to that one case where there was a meter, and obviously the meter was placed pretty close to the front elevation and wouldn't fall into the conditions that staff currently has the authority to approve. So then there's a question of, hey, is this something with a little bit of tweaking that we can allow staff to approve? So if there's already a meter existing and it's at the front, close to the front, is this something that the commission would feel okay with giving staff the authority to approve? Therefore, taking at least some of these, maybe a few off our plates. And
Yeah.
then if so, what type of, do we need a tweaking, kind of like Chair Epperson is noting, do we want to say lower it here? Do we want to leave it up to staff's kind of judgment?
Well, I think the key thing is if it's a replacement and they're going to put it pretty much where it happens to be, then we can play with the height if you want to. But the key thing is if it's a replacement, I think that one should be a straight approval. I mean, the problem is the citizen doesn't have a choice either. The city came to their door, and DTE came to the door and says, I got to replace your meter. And you say, well, fine. And then they come to the commission. And they're coming to the commission and say, what are you going to do? I'm going to put it outside the door where you already have it, and the holes are already there, and then we're debating about it. And
Right.
I
So
think
is it,
go ahead.
right, so is it so would the commission be amenable to allowing staff that authority, and the staff would essentially work with the home, obviously it's DTE and the homeowner to decide if it gets moved down or what have you, and it's just based on staff's discussion with DTE, the homeowner, and their discretion around lowering it. Is that something?
Well, I personally think that the real problem comes with the replacement, and they're just moving it outside, whether it's the front of the house or the back of the house. Because I'll tell you now, I would be unhappy if I had to replace the meter and it cost me $500 to do the plumbing, to put it wherever, the back on the left, on the corner. And I said, you mean I could have it out the door free? I mean, just where the other one is outside and it's free? That's the one I'm going to choose most of the time. If not, then let them make that decision to go back.
And I think, though, that is what's happening in pretty much almost every single instance, is that it is being located in a place that will be of no cost to the homeowner.
Right.
Not if you move
Within.
Not if you
No,
move east to west.
It is. I think in every single location, as long as it's within the 10 feet of fuel line and it can be placed in the back, it's been able to be approved.
I agree.
And
It's within that, if it's within those scopes, I agree. They can move it anywhere they want.
right. So I think the ones that are coming to us that are the ones that are still within that criteria but they're on the front of the house. And so I think it's really just a question of, yes, it's an issue that we have to review, that the Historic District Commission has to review and decide, does this want to be a staff approval item? Are we okay if they're on the front of the house? Or are there additional criteria that we say, we're okay with this X, Y, and Z, but these ones need to come to the commission so that we can actually have that discussion and hear more from DTE and the homeowner regarding why they need to be there.
Like if they wanted to put a bollard there.
Yeah. Right.
Like if the equipment was still there, like old equipment, they wanted to remove it, put new equipment in the same location, but oh, by the way, we've decided we wanted to throw a bollard. Well, something like that I think should come to the commission.
Correct. I agree with that.
Well,
So what I'm hearing right now is discussion on whether this situation where there's an existing valve and regulator, sorry, I'm trying to share my screen and it's not working. There we go. Where there's an existing valve and regulator, whether or not that would be a location that staff could approve with or without additional guidance from you guys.
I think you should be able to approve that. Because that's part of that was inside and outside. And now you just have a meter out there.
I know that we had a couple of these last month. One of them was right in the front of the house, and it had bushes. And since it had the existing valve and regulator, you guys decided it was okay to just reuse that existing piping there.
Yeah.
And I can assure you that if there's a weird one that just strikes me as wrong, there's no way I'm going to staff approve it.
Right.
Well,
I guess what kind of direction or guidance do you need from us for that? Or is it just like, for that particular one, it's installed kind of high. So if we said, if it's installed, above.
Like at the skirt board or below or something,
Yeah.
you could say.
But if it's face mounted on the house, then that we could say that would come to the commission for review.
I think if DTE would be willing to post mount it, fill the little screw holes, lower it as much as possible, leave it in the same location.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not saying that, but I think that's what I'm hearing you guys lean toward.
Yes.
With no bollards or extra.
Well, the bollard,
additional infrastructure.
A bollard comes if needed. And then what we could say is, if there's a bollard, bring it to the commission.
Yes, I agree with that. Yes.
And I don't know how many more this would capture, but might save you 15 minutes in a future meeting.
Hey, that's.
Oh, let's say this more.
You can get that back for your life. Hey, that's.
Commissioner Rockland, did you have additional?
I think I was just going to say, I'm glad you brought this up, but besides this existing manifold and existing other pieces of a meter, everything but the meter stuff, I can't think of anything else that would be across the board that we could say like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a painful process, but it just seems like case by case, like sometimes the driveway side's better. Actually, sometimes the other side's better. Like, the more we go through these, it's.
Yeah. Or if we could come up with if there's 5 other utilities already in that spot.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure what the proportion is there. If
right.
What's the threshold? Yeah.
One big one or.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was trying to think. Even if we said they should always be mounted below the water table, because that was something that we've been kind of consistent on, or the pipe should only be a certain length. But I think we're getting really specific, and I'm not sure if that is something that's useful, or what. I don't know that would even weed out some of these issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only sort of theme is this other utility area. If
Right.
it's a more utility area, but I'm not sure how we define that.
Right.
Well, and I would just to add on to that, I guess I would just ask staff, as you're getting these more and more in, and if you see situations, or if you're able to refine or define that threshold of I mean, definitely bring that forward.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
That would be awesome.
Well, Jill has sound, prudent judgment.
Oh, indeed.
I'm really pleased with that.
No doubt.
I am.
and she will bring that to us.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
And if I'm really on the fence, I can always email it to the officers, the 3 officers, and get their opinion. I do that several times a year.
Cool.
Certainly.
So just out of curiosity, how many, if you could just roughly guess, or roughly just estimate, how many have total? You said that you looked at 90 something of these?
Yeah, I think I'm right around 100 right now. I think that they've given me a couple different numbers. I can't remember off the top of my head. There was a 180 thrown out at one point, and there was a 250 thrown out at one point.
They're doing the west side.
We haven't done 3rd Street or 2nd Street yet. So, and it sounds like 4th Street is still happening. So we've really just done 5th and 6th.
Wow. But eventually, obviously, it'll end. I hope, right?
It ends at 2nd Street.
Yeah. So a few more large blocks.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, Jill, if you're Ms. Satcher, as you're doing these, and if you're like, oh, here's a natural something that staff should be able to approve, definitely let us know and we'll
Okay.
get over.
I have
Yeah.
seen one or two that are like, I just want to approve this. I'll send those to the officers, the new officers.
Okay.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
So
All right,
does there have
All right.
to, I'm sorry, sorry to interrupt, but I was going to say, does there have to be some sort of motion around that or?
Yeah, you should, somebody should make a motion that staff may approve an existing valve and regulator location for a meter if it's converted to a post mount below the water table.
I think I nominate the chair for making that motion.
No, I will make the motion. I just wanted to make sure we were capturing everything else that we had said could be accommodated. I'm just trying to think back through our conversation. I think we got that. That was everything, right?
Yes. And
Okay.
I support that.
I will make the motion that
Okay.
that staff can approve existing relocated gas meters if they are relocated to existing equipment and that equipment is made to be post-mounted.
Support.
I'm sorry, just to add or recommend, and that there's no additional, like the bollard piece, no additional
And
equipment.
there's no additional infrastructure.
Support.
Anna, did you want to leave in the bit about below the water table, or you want to leave that? If it's post mounted, it's going to be.
Yeah, I would say that it should be mounted as low as possible to the ground. So I think if it seems to be that they can mount them fairly low. So I think we could
Okay.
require them to do so. And if it can't be, then they can come to the commission.
Okay.
All right.
That being said, you still recommend that they put it in the backyard, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
We had that example
Oh, yeah.
tonight where the
Right.
manifold was in the front and they're
Yeah.
going to end up with it in the back.
Right.
because We went through this whole process, so.
Yeah, and for the next meeting, a lot of these homeowners, they signed the application, but I didn't have any contact information for them. And I got to require that from now on.
Yeah,
They've got to
I think
know
that'd be
where the
really good.
meeting is and what's going on, and yeah, that there are site visits and yada yada. So I'll let the DTE folks know that we will also require an email address or a phone if that's not available.
So is there any discussion on the motion?
No.
Okay, so I guess we can move to a vote. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 Yes. All of those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Okay, on to, yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. On to item H, minutes. Minutes for the April 8th, 2021 meeting were circulated. Are there any objections to the minutes? I didn't.
Well, what I got was, I didn't get the minutes. I got the things that you approved for, from the staff. That list.
The minutes came separately in an email from Mia.
Mhm.
Okay.
They came right before the shortly before the meeting with the revised agenda. Or with another agenda.
Oh, I see them. Okay, it's only April 8th. Is that
Correct.
right? She
Yes.
dropped the other one. Okay,
Correct.
I moved my scroll too far. Okay.
Right. Just give you guys a minute or so. I don't see any objection.
No, I don't see any objections.
So go ahead and approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done.
All right. On to item I, reports from the commissioners. Would any commissioner like to share something with the commission? Nope. On to item J1, assignments. review committee will be on Tuesday, July 6th, 2021 at 5 p.m. for the July 8th, 2021 regular meeting. Would anyone like to volunteer? Commissioner Rockland?
I think I volunteered 2 months ago, or last month, I think, for this.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
I'm staying on board with that. I can do it.
Yay.
Oh, this is at 5 or is this at?
It's
It's at 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm flexible.
I could do it. I'm just stacking it up because I won't be able to do it when they're at 12. So.
Right.
Sounds
That's
good.
fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you both.
Thank you, guys.
Commissioner Rockland and Ross. So on to item K1, reports from staff. So the staff report is attached. Bob, did you get that as well?
I did. I got
Okay.
what I had before. And
Ah, gotcha.
that's outstanding work by Jill.
You guys
All
have
those
any
gas
questions?
meters.
All those gas meters. Let me know if you have questions.
Well done.
I can't think of anything else that I have to report. Oh, yeah, very quickly. It's not for sure yet, but the direction that the city is headed in terms of public meetings is the state legislature had to enable local units of government to hold meetings virtually like this. And that is set to expire on December 31st of this year. And at this point, they haven't made any noises about extending it. So there's obviously still 6 months and something could happen. But tentatively, we will probably be virtual through 2021 and then switch to full in-person in January is the way it looks at this moment in time, subject to change without notice.
Well, that shouldn't be a problem. And the reason why Washtenaw County is within 63.8, I heard today. So vaccination. So by the next 6 months, we should be at least at 75%. That means I'll come out of the closet.
They're all coming out of the woodwork.
No, I mean, I'm quarantining myself. I haven't been to a restaurant and sat down and probably since we started this thing.
So if I get any other news, I'll let you know. But
okay.
That's where we are today.
Thank you. Good to know. Right. Any other questions on the staff report or any information? Okay. On to item L, concerns of commissioners. Are there any concerns of commissioners? Nope. Item M1, there are communications. I see no communications this month. So item N, adjournment. I now adjourn the June 10th, 2021 HDC meeting.